Good morning, Council.
Good morning, Your Worship.
Morning.
Good morning. Just waiting for a couple more to light up.
I can't hear nothing on my volume.
The one bonus of Zoom, we didn't have to drive in.
Apparently the host has stopped my video, so I can't turn it on. Same thing, host.
Take it off my phone.
We're missing Council Withy, right?
Can you hear your volume on your committee?
Can everyone hear all right?
Okay.
Okay.
Is yours plugged into your dock? Good morning. Okay, I will. Yep.
Okay, Council, I'm going to call the meeting to order. The meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act, and I can confirm that we have quorum. However, I cannot confirm that every councillor is present, and we need them all for the first item of business. So I'm just waiting for Councillor Withy. Is that Councillor Withy that's trying to connect audio? Okay. Morning, Councillor Withy.
Morning.
Okay, Council, apparently we're about to have our COVID-19 photo. So the clerks would like us to all smile for 10 seconds and not do anything else. So if we can do that, they're going to try to get some kind of a picture. Okay, I think we got it. Good job. All right. Okay. I have resolutions without any movers and seconders this morning, so I am going to pick you guys as we go, if you're all right. So I'm going to have moved by Councillor Wiebe and seconded by Councillor Thompson. It is recommended that the General Committee meeting agenda dated Wednesday, November 25th, 2020 be adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that carries. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Our first item of business is under invited presentations, and we are going to do our long service awards, a little bit different than we usually do in person, where we have our staff present, but I think some of them may be on the screen. So when I acknowledge you, if you want to light up and wave, that would be nice. So we have long service awards in operations and protective services, and we have Brandon Hall, and I think I saw Brandon earlier. Brandon, are you still with us? Maybe not. Brandon has 10 years service. Cynthia Hampton, again, 10 years service. And Steve Hernan, 30 years service. Congratulations, Steve. From Development Services, Corey Cruson, 10 years. Thanks, Corey. Andrew Stiller, 15 years. I see Andrew there, but here he comes. Congratulations, Andrew. And from Community Services, Tammy Bruning. (10 years). David Tompkins, 10 years. Sarah White, 15 years. These guys are all hard at work. And Pete Kingshot, 20 years from Community Services. So congratulations. Simone, pass that on to everybody for us. And from Financial Services, Lori Allen. Is Lori here? Lori's got 10 years. And from HR, Barb Ingram, 10 years. Is Barb here? Yeah. So congratulations. All right. Sorry. Oh yeah. Hey, Brandon, you were first up. Congratulations on your 10 years and thanks. Okay. We are moving on to deputations, and our first deputation today is Jim Popovsky and Kim Dowdy from the Huntsville Pickleball organization. Kim, Jim, where are you guys?
We're here. I can't seem to get the, maybe I can now. Yeah,
Oh, there we are.
Okay.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
Okay, the floor is yours. I
Okay.
think there might be a slideshow, right?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Good morning. My name is Jim Popovsky. My wife Lorna and I are the pickleball ambassadors for the Huntsville area through Pickleball Ontario. As we begin this presentation, feel free to ask questions at any time. Next slide. This is what I say.
Is Crystal there?
Crystal's controlling our PowerPoint.
Just 1 second. We're just adjusting your volume so we can hear you better too.
Okay.
Oh, there, perfect.
Okay, it's on the screen now, Jim.
Okay, did you get the first part or?
Yeah.
Okay, so next slide then. Okay, what I'm going to talk about is what is pickleball, who's playing, the benefits, advantages of pickleball, the Huntsville Pickleball Club, pickleball in Huntsville, equipment required, what other communities are doing, and what we are asking for. Next slide, please. Okay, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in North America, with thousands taking up the sport every day. It is a paddle sport created for all ages and skill levels. The rules are simple and the game is easy for beginners to learn, but can develop into a quick, fast-paced, competitive game for experienced players. A fun sport that combines many elements of tennis, badminton, and ping pong. Played both indoors and outdoors on a badminton-sized court and a slightly modified tennis net. Played with a paddle and a plastic ball with holes in it. Played as doubles or singles. Most games, however, are played as doubles. Next slide, please. Next, please. Okay, pickleball was a game for seniors when it first started, but now it is a game for all ages. Our Summer Kids Clinic, offered for 6 weeks during the summer of 2020, introduced the games to the kids. Every single one of these kids did not miss a lesson. Next slide, please. It has become a family event because it is so easy to learn and play. Next slide. Some of our new beginners, loving their newfound sport. Testimonial: pickleball has gotten me through COVID this summer and I am not alone. These beginners came out to our clinic and over 90% of them decided to stay and join our club. This was very unusual, since about 30% of the people who try a new sport decide not to stay. Next slide. Anyone can play, ages 6 to 100. There are tournaments all over North America that have categories for competitors 80 plus and now also for 12 plus. The life cycle of a pickleball player can lead to many other racket sports. Combination of exercise and socialization are good for the body and mind. Low risk of injury. Cost of playing equipment costs are minimal. Increased court utilization. This is for tennis and pickleball. Pickleball tournaments provide for a great source of tourism dollars for the host cities. Most tournaments are held over 2 or 3 days. Great for restaurants, hotels, shops, etc. Next slide.
His mic might not be all the way up.
The Huntsville Pickleball. The mission of our Huntsville Pickleball group is to promote and assist in the growth of pickleball in the Huntsville-Muskoka area as a sport accessible to all ages and abilities. Our mandate as pickleball ambassadors: work with our local towns, communities to acquire, develop more places to play indoors and out. Introduce new players to the game. To interview with the consultant, writing the master plan coming up. Provide regular activities and events that provide physical and social interactions amongst the pickleball community. Assist with skill development for those who wish to improve their play. Provide an opportunity for tournament play at skill levels. Run the senior games pickleball event and do a tournament to bring visitors revenue to our town. We have been asked to host a pickleball tournament for the games in 2021 here in Huntsville. Continuous correspondence with the 135 players on our email list, and update and maintain the Facebook page, Huntsville, Ontario Pickleball, which right now has 76 members on Facebook. Next slide, please. Pickleball clinics in Huntsville. We have held 8 clinics over this summer, 4 beginners clinics with a follow-up clinic on how they are progressing, attracted 25 new beginners, 2 intermediate clinics, 2 drill clinics. Currently, we have 4 indoor courts, summer only at the Summit Center, and pickleball lines painted on existing tennis courts, Meadow Park and Conroy Park, summer only. We have 135 players that will be playing. Previous to this year, we held 2 clinics in Dwight and the Summit Center. Next, please. As I mentioned before, over 90% of the people in the beginners clinic decided to join our club. They played in all different weather conditions this month, even including some snow days. That's true dedication.
I can vouch for that.
Next one. As you can see, the equipment there, just some paddles, your own runners, and a few balls. That is all that's necessary to play pickleball. Next, please. Now, this slide here is what other communities are doing. This chart shows some of the towns around us and some further away. As you can see, there are a lot of small towns on this list. Huntsville is one of the largest, if not largest, town in Muskoka, and we are lagging behind in terms of dedicated pickleball courts. We do not have any, and as you can see, all those places have anywhere from 4 to 6, and some of them, Bracebridge included, are doing a proposal, and they're also following our proposal. Next slide. Remember, if you have any questions, just please ask. Now, this shows how 4 pickleball courts can be put on 1 tennis court. So this is just 1 tennis court. The other one is to the right. There is enough room at Meadow Park that the courts could run either way. That means that we can have 16 players at one time on 1 tennis court compared to 4 pickleball and 2 for tennis, the old way that we had it. Next slide. This is what Meadow Park would look like if we converted the 1 tennis court to the 4 pickleball courts. And they can still play tennis. So on this one here at Meadow Park, we're able to have 16 pickleball players plus 2 or 4 tennis players playing at the same time compared to 4 or 6. Next slide, please. Okay, repurposing tennis courts to pickleball courts. Given the rise in popularity of pickleball, many municipalities are repurposing tennis courts into pickleball courts. Recent examples include Sarnia, Stratford, Boyer Park, Bayview Park in the town of Blue Mountain, and Garrow Park in Kenora. Many municipalities have undertaken initiatives to convert one tennis court to 4 permanent pickleball courts. We got a rough estimate from Advantage Sports Surfacing, and they estimated for 4 painted courts on the one tennis court, anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000. And the estimated cost of 4 permanent nets is anywhere between $4,000 and $5,000. Okay, and we're also waiting for an estimate from Court Crafters in Muskoka. Now, when it says resurfacing, we are actually talking about painting the courts, not really resurfacing them. Our courts have already have been resurfaced. They're in great condition. So we would just have to paint, okay, 4 pickleball courts with those nets. To summarize, we are trying to convert one tennis court, slide 16, sorry. Okay, sorry. To summarize, we want to convert one tennis court to 4 dedicated pickleball courts at Meadow Park. We already went over the cost, anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 for resurfacing, nets and posts between 4 and 5. So that's about anywhere from $14,000 to $17,000 to complete the job with everything that we need. How's the cost going to be recovered? We have been awarded $2,000 from the Legacy Fund. We are going to apply for grants that are made available. We're going to try to do some fundraising, ask for donations, and some town financial support. Time frame. We would like to have this done in the spring of 2021. It is not a real big job. Some paint, 4 nets, 8 posts, and your approval. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Thanks, Jim, for that. We will ask council if there are any questions now. Council? Yes, Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Hi.
Hi, and thank you so much for the presentation. I really don't have a question as much as I absolutely support your proposal. I tried pickleball for the first time when I was in Mexico last time, and it's harder than it looks, but that's just because it's me.
Thank you.
But I can see it's, I know so many people who play pickleball, and I agree with you. I think it is the sport that we really have to be paying attention to, because it does meet so many different age levels, and it's a lot of fun, as you said. So I do support your proposal, but I guess I do have a question. We are going through our master planning, parks master planning, and there is a possibility we're looking at repurposing the courts down in Port Sydney. So is that something you guys have also considered, having facilities down there?
Yeah, that would be great. You know, the
You
more
need to go everywhere.
Yeah, the more we have, the better it is.
Yeah.
Like we said before in my presentation, I mean, it's unbelievable when we have 135 people.
It's 152 right now.
Lauren says 152 right now. So we gained a few more. And even when we just got led into the Summit Center this week, okay, we had at least 60 or 70 people that emailed Lorna saying that they do want to play indoors. In other words, they want to play during this COVID situation. We're taking all the precautions that we can, and that just shows that people do want to play. And one more thing to add to your comment there, I didn't really mention it, but it is an unbelievable social event. most of our friends and the beginners group, everyone, they come up, they have bonded, okay? They see each other, they talk to each other. It is just unbelievable how social it is. And especially right now, I know we keep our distance and whatever, but to have something that they can do during the COVID. And once we get through this pandemic, it will be unbelievable. All the new friends that the people meet, and it's through pickleball.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Other questions, Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. I sort of had a couple of questions, but I'll just start off. Is there a membership cost to this, to join this club?
Right now, no. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
All right. And the 10 to 12,000, is that just to paint lines on the current courts?
Believe it or not, that's what it is. Okay, so now they just resurfaced Conroy Park just this couple of months ago. Okay, in the spring or summer, right? And the city would know, okay, because they did it. The town would know how much it actually costs. That's all they're doing. Okay, they call it resurfacing, but basically, yes, they're going to paint. On that one tennis court, they're going to paint 4 pickleball courts, you know, green and blue or whatever, the colors that we want. So to answer your question, yes, that's how much they charge to actually, I imagine it's a different type of paint that has to be applied to the surface. That's why it costs that much.
That it won't wear off.
That it won't wear off quickly, yeah. Okay, and your first question, sorry, right now we pay as we play. Okay, so in other words, through Parks and Rec, it's through Jessica and Simone. Okay, Simone that was running it. So we were paying, the new fee would be $5 per person every time that you went out to play. But if we got this going in terms of our own dedicated pickleball courts, we would probably charge an annual fee. So you become a member and you can play as often as you wish for whatever fee the Parks and Rec is going to set, because it's still going to be part of the Parks and Rec. In terms of the township running it. Lorna and I are just the organizers and give recommendations to what we need to play the sport.
Can I just, it's just Kim here. I'm sort of not on the screen, but can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to mention that all summer long, Lorna and Jim have given so much of their time and energy to this sport. We as a group of beginners, and there's 15 of us, and we are rabid about this. We haven't paid a cent. They come out, they've taught us, they've done workshops and lessons and facilitated. They've come back to the courts to help us out. There has not been a cost to any of us, with the exception of buying our own rackets. And even that, if we don't have a racket, there's some available through the town. So it is so affordable. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank both of them, because without Lorna and Jim, I would never have even been introduced to the game. So there is a charge for indoor play right now. We're paying $20 for four sessions until the end of December. But generally speaking, I mean, there may be a small annual summer fee, but that's it. So it is just a wonderfully easy sport to grasp. It's for me, I don't like to run too much, so it's been amazing. And honestly, I think even though it is $10,000, it's a drop in the bucket if all of these people can continue to be active through COVID and the rest of their lives. Thanks.
Councillor Whitty.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm wondering a couple of quick things. What does the tennis community think of you poaching their game spot there? And I too think that $10,000 to paint lines is outrageous. I hope there's a lot of competitive quotes being pulled in. But I would be in favor, because of the cost of just this, how much more would it be for us to actually put new facilities all together, leave the tennis people alone, because I can see there might be a little backlash on that. If we're spending 17 grand for posts and paint, what's the uptick to find a nice piece of land and build an actual brand new court. I think that would be a better way to go.
Yeah, it would be, but first of all, obviously the land, but if it's city owned, that solves half the problem. But it's, you know, whatever it costs in the city, whoever organizes the construction of a tennis court and whatever would have an idea. But I'm thinking 100 or 200,000.
For sure.
Okay, to put on those courts.
I'd be interested to see those numbers. Just if you're out there, I mean, you know, I'm kind of still sort of taken back at the cost of painting and nets.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems ridiculously high.
Yeah.
And I don't, I mean, can you address what kind of perhaps backlash you might get from tennis people, or saying, okay, wait a minute, you're taking our facilities away?
Okay, that's
Thanks.
a great question. Okay, so what's happened this past summer? Okay, tennis players had play at Meadow Park every morning from roughly 9 o'clock until 10:30. Okay, on the 2 courts at Meadow Park. At Conroy, okay, whenever they can get there, they would play. Conroy was open to anyone playing pickleball or tennis, but the problem for a couple of months at Conroy is that the high school has the facilities, okay, during the day. Now, the other thing is, okay, so the tennis club, okay, on those particular days, Monday to Friday, from 9 o'clock to 10:30, had no more than 6 to 8 people. 6 to 8 people every single day from Monday to Friday. We have 30 to 40 every single day. So what happened after the tennis players finished, okay, pickleball got the courts from 10:30 all the way till 3:30, but 3 different groups. So our beginners, our intermediate, and our advanced each had 2 hours. And so each group had well over 10, 12 people so playing pickleball during that time. So now with our proposal, okay, so tennis just had Monday to Friday from 9 o'clock until 10:30. With our proposal in terms of building the pickleball courts on one, which we will use all the time, tennis now has 1 tennis court, okay, all day, Monday to Friday, all day. So they have 10 hours, whatever they want to play, plus whatever they can play at Conroy. So to answer your question, they have 10 times more playing time than they had this whole summer. And we're talking about 6 to 8 tennis players, okay, compared to 50, 60 on our group and 30, 40 playing every single day.
Just to add to that, Tim, I also want to remind council that there are 2 tennis courts in Utterson, there are 2 in Port Sydney, there are 2 at Conroy, there are 2 at Meadow Park. That's 8 tennis courts. We're asking for 1 for a big population of people that are keen to play. So lots of options. I know driving's involved, but we don't, you know, I think our request is more than reasonable.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I think Councillor Thompson was next.
Yep.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, with regards to resurfacing them, Jim, would you be painting out the tennis lines completely and just replacing, in other words, I guess you're painting the whole court and then replacing the lines with the pickleball lines? Is that sort of the idea? So there would be no tennis court lines at all?
Yeah, there'll be no tennis.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. On that one court, there'll be no tennis at all, because what we're doing also is putting up 4 nets. Okay, we're making 4 different courts. You know, like, I mean, you could go on a pickleball court, especially young kids, and play tennis. There is no problem at all, okay, for someone to go out when the courts aren't used. And as a matter of fact, for anyone that's young, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age, it'd be unbelievable. They don't have to chase the ball that far. The net is roughly the same. It only goes down a little bit for pickleball. So now we've got 4 extra courts for tennis if someone wanted to do it when the pickleball does not have their time slot in there, and they're playing on a really, so it's a small court pickleball. That's the best way to teach tennis or whatever in terms of the facilities that also would be available to them.
I think what it is too, because I've done some calling around about the prices, and I think the price, what you're seeing is a true price. What it is they called it resurfacing. Jim and I kept on saying, you mean paint? And he said, no, it's resurfacing. So what I think is the colors, like for instance, in pickleball, you have this area called the kitchen. Well, that's usually one full color, and it's usually a bright yellow or whatever. So I think this is why it is as expensive as you're seeing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any further questions? Yes, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. To Kim's point, there is actually only one in Utterson, but I know we had been in talks. I know I was talking with Director Hernan about possibly resurfacing that one in Utterson to have both tennis and pickleball at once. And as Deputy Mayor Alcott did mention, we are looking at, it would go to a public sort of forum, what to do with the 2 at Spring Creek. So keeping one as a tennis court and the other a possible multi-use court as an option. But I do agree with you, Kim. The one in Utterson is underutilized as far as tennis goes. It's quite used on the weekends, but during the week, if anyone wanted to drive up, it is usually quite open. So there is options.
Yeah, and to that point, that's the starting point. If we have tennis courts in and around the Huntsville area that you have mentioned, it's fantastic as a starting point to put pickleball lines on them. All of a sudden, okay, you haven't really done anything, but you've just put a whole group of people that could come and play. So you've doubled, tripled the size of people that are going to want to play, whether it's pickleball or tennis, okay? You haven't really done any damage to either one of them.
Yeah, just one more thing. I've been talking to North Bay on like starting from scratch, like Tim, you had mentioned, and he did send me prices, this one guy, so I can send you that. It's a start with, if we get land and we build our own.
But right now, the other thing is that the quickest and the cheapest way is the 4 courts on Meadow Park, okay? And that will, solve the problem of us needing the extra courts for us to play. And again, it's the starting point. And at that list that I showed you, places like Wasaga, Hanover, that's what they've done, and it's worked out really, really well. Like, I mean, we would, to have brand new facilities, it would be unbelievable. It'd be really good. But right now, if we can get, those 4 courts at the price that we're asking, I think it'd be a great benefit, and it's the fastest and easiest way. If we're to go the other way, we're talking about another year or so. I don't know how long it would take for, first of all, for you to find the land, and then secondly, to have all the constructions going on and everything. By the time everything's there, we're talking about a whole other year. Whereas for this, the 15, 17,000 that we're asking for, we get it all done, and we're as happy as can be.
Councillor Withey, one more question.
Thank you. I would perhaps suggest that you look sort of outside these sports court people and look at somebody like a Mason pavement marking sort of guy who does, all that kind of stuff too, for perhaps a competitive quote. He does all the handicap parking spots that are all blue, the whole lot and stuff like that. So that's something that you might consider looking at. And I guess I would just finally say that while I agree with you that the timing of converting a court is a lot easier and quicker than building from scratch, I think we should keep both options on the table for the future as we do building soccer pitches as this grows. So there's land out at Macaulay Robertson we can probably hive off for this kind of thing. But I think that just sort of like minor soccer, the way it exploded, we had to look at putting new fields together pretty quickly. So I think if we plan for the future, we could sort of keep both streams moving forward. Anyway, that's my comments. Thanks, Your Worship.
Okay, guys, that's great discussion. And Jim, thank you. Actually, thank you to both you and Lorna for running that kids program this summer too. That was a huge success, and we certainly appreciate your volunteerism
back
there.
every week.
Yeah, and thanks Kim as well. And I know it's on our agenda at the end. I'm sure that we will end up with a staff report coming back that outlines all of the pros and cons and the feasibility of doing this. The good news is you're in before we've finalized any budget. So the spring of 2021 isn't unrealistic. And we will make sure that staff come back with something fairly quick on that and give us the options that are the answers to the questions that we actually need.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thank you
We
so
really
much.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, our second deputation is Denise Vassy on a license of occupation at 77 Ontario Street. Are you with us, Denise?
Yes, I am. I'm unable to start my video. I'm trying, but it's not allowing me. There we go. Perfect.
Great. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Mayor and Councilors, for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Denise Vassy, and I own and permanently reside at 77 Ontario Street in Port Sydney. The purpose of my deputation is to give you some additional background information for your consideration when reviewing new business item 6.1.6 report Corp 2020-50 license of occupation application 77 Ontario Street dock. My home at 77 Ontario Street is located directly across the road from Mary Lake. My frontage is 158 feet. On the lake side, there's a small strip of land ranging in width from 2.5 feet at its narrowest to 12 feet at its widest, with the majority of the 158 being on the narrow side. I have a dock directly in front of my house on the lake. The dock has been in the same location for in excess of 30 years. The Municipal Property Assessment Corporation describes my home as single family detached on water. Additionally, MPAC lists my home as A, waterfront lake, T, permanent docking, and J, indirect waterfront with right-of-way access. The topology in front of my house where the dock is located can be described as a 3.5-foot drop entry to the water level. The shoreline is a mix of mud and stones. I have stairs leading to a ramp leading to the dock. From the stairs, there's an 8 by 12-foot ramp leading to a 16 by 20-foot dock. Earlier this year, I listed my home for sale. During the sales process, prospective buyers have asked for clarification regarding ownership of the land directly across the road in front of the home. At the time, the town had advised the real estate agent that it was privately owned by a neighboring property. After a considerable amount of investigation, it was suggested that the piece of land in question was in fact town-owned. For this reason, the agent recommended that a license to occupy be acquired. In order to ensure all policies and procedures were properly followed, in August 2020, I hired Lanny Dennis of Wayne Simpson Planning and Associates to prepare an application on my behalf. The application was submitted on Wednesday, September the 2nd, 2020. I was of the impression that there was no concerns and the application would be going to General Committee for approval at the October 28th meeting. On October 23rd, I was advised that the application was being held in abeyance for the next couple of months until Council could decide how they wish to review these types of applications collectively as a whole. Following the October 23rd update, I personally reached out to both Tanya Kalia and Denise Corey. Initially, I was not able to connect with them, and at that time, emailed Councillor Jason Fitzgerald my concerns, which he forwarded to Denise Corey. In my correspondence of October 23rd, I provided additional background information associated with the reasons for the application. I explained that time was of the essence, that there was a pending real estate deal, with the offer being conditional upon agreement from the town that allows exclusive use of the dock at 77 Ontario Street, presumably a license to occupy, by October 31st, 2020. I also indicated that a 30-day extension was requested to the condition, which takes us to November 30th. On October 29, I received an update date from Denise Corey. Denise indicated that she would review with staff and get back to me. On November 11th, Denise Corey advised me that staff had recommended to postpone a decision at this time due to the fact that current policies would result in a denial of the request. Having said that, rather than deny the application, she had directed staff to prepare a report for the General Committee meeting scheduled for November 25th, which would provide a synopsis of the approach they're recommending with dealing with situations such as this collectively, which brings us here today. Report Court 2020-50 recommends placing on hold the license of application until sometime in 2021 to allow staff to conduct a full review of town relevant policies and plans. The report references 3 areas of discussion or consideration in support of the recommendation to not approve the plan. 1, the town's strategic and utility plans for access to water amenities, expanding dock and beach areas. 2, the location of the property itself, that being 77 Ontario Street. And 3, homeowners taking the liberty of possession. I'd like to speak to each of these. 1, strategic and utility plans for access to water amenities. This is a commendable strategy, which I trust we all support. With respect to the dam itself, there may be additional potential areas that can be utilized to further support the town's strategy that are more suitable than the area adjacent to the dock. At the dam, in addition to the riverside, rock and swimming area, there is 360 feet of unutilized land from the road to the dam itself on the lake side. 120 feet closest to the dam offers a gradual slope towards the water. It's sporadically used for boat docking, although no formal facilities exist. The next 180 feet, which is to the right of the walkway, measuring 17 feet at its widest and 9 feet at its narrowest point, offers a grassy gradual slope to water. This area is not currently used. The land is to the right of the walkway, separate from the parking lot and indicated by the blue arrow in Appendix 2 of the report. There's a further additional 60 feet from the walkway to the road entrance. These areas have an opportunity to provide enormous potential towards addressing strategic and utility plans for access to the water. They can possibly be expanded and used for swimming, launching canoes, kayaks, and boats. Respectfully, again, with respect to the dam itself, there may be additional potential areas that can be utilized to further support the town's strategic objectives, which are more suitable than the area adjacent to the dock in question. A solution that offers a practical answer that respectively addresses the needs of all parties with a positive outcome. Number 2, the location of the property itself being 77 Ontario Street. The dock at 77 Ontario Street is the 3rd dock north, or as described in the report, above the dam parking lot. In the pictures provided, one of the docks has already been removed for the winter. The dock in question is located 300 feet from the entrance to the dam. As previously stated, the width of the grassy area between the road and the water is as small as 2.5 feet wide, and the entrance to the water is not a gradual slope, but a drop to a mix of mud and stones. Respectfully, the description of the dock in the report better describes the area directly beside the dam entranceway as opposed to the dock in question for which the application has been submitted. The area in question for the most part is not wide enough to stand on without partially being on the roadway. Number 3, homeowners taking liberty of possession. It has never been anyone's intention to take any liberties. The dock has been in this location for over 30 years. I pay taxes on a waterfront property that has been clearly documented by MPAC as waterfront permanent docking with waterfront right-of-way access. I maintain the property and I insure the dock. I appreciate the town, excuse me, I'm just gonna have a drink. I appreciate the town has a greater issue as situations like this are common within the municipality. In this particular situation, I believe I have followed the existing policies and procedures by applying for a license of occupation. The concern presented by the Parks Department that the use of this municipal property has potential to change in the near future for public access to waterfront appears to be a description more suitable for lands adjacent to the dock area than the very narrow strip of property in front of 77 Ontario Street between the road and the water. I appreciate this request may initially not be as straightforward as one would have anticipated. Having said that, noting that all parties have indicated they anticipate the review will result in the favor of the applicant, I would hope that all those involved appreciate the reasons why I'm requesting attention to this matter with a favorable resolution for all sooner rather than later. Given the pending sale of the home, I'm hopeful that the town can offer a solution in an expeditious manner that does not negatively impact the sale of the home while maintaining the interest of all parties. For these reasons, I'm asking the additional options be considered that permit the town to acknowledge the exclusive use of the dock at 77 Ontario Street. I thank everyone involved as we all work together to acknowledge the issues and various favorable opportunities for a resolution, along with an acceptance and appreciation for the request to be resolved in a timely manner. I thank you for your time and be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Denise. We do have a report, as you referenced, coming up later in the agenda, but I'm going to open it to council to ask any questions of you right now, if that's okay.
Fine.
Council questions. Councillor Wiebe.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry. Just one quick one, Denise. How long have you owned the property? Were you the original? When did you purchase it?
So I've been in the property, I want to say about 10 years, possibly 11 years now.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. So you didn't install the dock. So when you purchased the property, did you have the property searched then to see if the dock belonged to the property?
So we did not install the dock. However, having said that, in 2013, the dock took a pretty bad hit with the floods that we had in the area. So it was updated and replaced at that point in time. It had to be removed for safety reasons and changed. The second question you had was, if you could repeat it, please.
I was just curious that when you purchased your property, that if it was part of the property land search by the lawyer at that time, if you owned it.
I'm not sure of how it worked with the lawyer. There were questions during the transaction of the use of the dock, and the discussion was not an issue. So I was not led to believe there were any problems at that time at all.
Any further questions from council? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Ms. Vasey. Was a building permit obtained when you replaced the dock after the flooding?
It was not. When we worked with the company that was working on it, we were told that it's a totally floating dock. It's not, there are no, I think the word is crib. There's no crib or anything like that. It attaches it. It is totally on pontoons.
Thank you.
Councillor Schumacher.
So through you, your worship, to Ms. Vasey, I don't know if you'd know the answer to this. Maybe it might be a staff that needs to, if we do a letter of occupation with yourself and you sell the house, does that letter of occupation go to the next owner?
So what I understand from just reading the recent report, that it was not transferable. So I'm trying to understand, how that all works, because I do believe that there are other properties within the municipality that have the same situation. So I'm looking to ensure that we have something that can ensure that the next owner doesn't have a problem. I want to ensure that this is a good solution for all, myself, the next owner, and the town.
Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Denise, for your presentation. Just a quick question. So I know we're talking about the dock, but you did make reference to your ownership of your house includes access to the water, right?
Yes.
That's the. So for someone who is purchasing your house, would continue? The next owner would have deeded access to the water.
Well, when you say that, it's according to MPAC. It truly describes my home. I pulled up all the MPAC reports, everything that comes to me in the mail with regards to my taxes. It says single family detached on water. It has alphabetic listings where it says A, waterfront, T, permanent docking, and J, indirect waterfront with right of way access. So it's clearly defined all of that on all the legal documents that I have. The issue came up with the real estate indicating that they believed the understanding that this license of occupation was a requirement of the town. So if it is, I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. But in doing so, it's brought up a couple additional questions on how do we move forward with this to make sure that everybody's interests are taken care of properly. And hence the reason for applying for this.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Denise, thanks for that. And we will have the report, and I'm sure there'll be more questions of our staff, and we'll come up with some kind of a resolution.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Council, we're going to move into new business, and our first report is from Rebecca Hawken, the Procurement Policy Amendment. Rebecca? Oh, hang on. Just before you start, I have to read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by Councillor Thompson. It is recommended that the amended procurement policy as attached to Report Corp 2020-46 be approved, and further that the bylaw be prepared and forwarded to Council for approval. Okay, Rebecca, go ahead now.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, Council, Committee. Today I've got a report on an update to the procurement policy. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background of how my review started. Was back in the summertime, I was asked to present to the library board because they adopt the town's procurement policy. So through some of the discussions with them and the presentation I gave, I identified some opportunities for improvement in our current policy. And the main concern I had was that on the authority levels, the way that the previous policy was written, it was actually requiring staff to come to committee and council to commit to a procurement awards, but that's not actually the case or how the town handles our procurements, and that staff is delegated through the delegated authority bylaw to commit to these. So I've adjusted the language to make sure that we're in line with our current practices. There's also a lot of kind of procedural items that for me were a concern, because if we include those procedural items and then change our procedures. One of the examples being during COVID, we went fully electronic with our procurement openings. So, we were technically out of compliance and not conducting an in-person tender opening. So I just wanted to, remove some of those procedure items so that we have a little bit of flexibility and that we're not out of compliance with the policy and potentially open to complaints from vendors. So just a bit of a highlight of why I've done a review and some of the changes that I'm recommending.
Okay, questions from council? Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Worship, and thanks, Rebecca. This is very detailed. I'm taking it that you're changing the approval levels of money, where the staff would no longer have to come to council for different amounts. I see a lot of red lines crossing out numbers. Authority level limit per occurrence up to but not including $100,000. That changed from $5,000. That looks pretty drastic to me. I'm not sure I'm on side with all these striking out of procurement numbers. I mean, it just basically, once again, it sort of takes us out of the picture for pretty substantial amounts of money, and in some cases totally struck out altogether. So there's no limit. And I don't know that I agree with removing our purview on this stuff to these accounts. I mean, there are limits there for a reason. We all have a duty to the taxpayer, and for taking out some of these checks and balances. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this. And with all these changes, has there been, maybe it says here, but has any legal department looked over this to make sure that's it's okay? Should it have an opinion from a lawyer?
Sure. Thank you, Council, and through you, Your Worship. I see Julia's list. So in terms of the authority levels, the way that it was explained to me, and maybe Julia can speak to it, is that procurement awards that are, follow the normal process, are within budget, did not come back to committee or council for approval. So while there was limits of $500,000 to come to committee, that was not the case or the process that was in place. So that staff was delegated the authority to award contracts up to really any value. So Julia, I don't know if you want to jump in on that one and what was done in the past.
Was staff just doing it without coming to us? Is that what you just said? I mean, yes, there were rules, but we just decided not to follow them? Or are you telling me that we said in the past, go ahead, disregard the rules?
So just to hope this clarifies is that when we have, it was the way the policy was written. So the intention was always that if there is a draft, or if there is an amount that is approved by council, then staff have the direction to go out and make that purchase. So if we have the Atwell Bridge project and we have approval in the budget process to go ahead with that process, we haven't been coming back to council and getting approval to enter into that contract, because the contract was essentially approved through the budget process. And that's how staff have been operating, that we do make sure that we always have approval from council to enter into these agreements, because we have that authority through the budget process. So it was just the way that the policy was written. It was a bit confusing. So what Rebecca's done is gone through it and clarified that. So staff would not be entering into agreements or contracts where there was not budget approval to do so. So I hope that explains that. The other part is with the checks and balances is this is to enter into contracts. It isn't to pay the actual invoices, which is separate from procurement. That's the actual distribution of funds. And we do have a separate policy for that. And that still remains that the mayor or alternate and the CAO at certain levels would still have to sign off on checks, that sort of thing, to sign off on those invoices. So that process is still in place. This is just the actual entering into the contracts.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Withey?
Well, it was an answer. I don't know if it was an answer that I quite am in line with, but anyways, thank you for your answer.
In effect, we're not changing the authority levels. We're just cleaning up the policy to match our, yeah, I know it's very detailed, so it is very hard to follow. But we're not changing the level of approval from, say, $100,000 for the CAO to $500,000 for the CAO. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, because everything would still have to be approved by council through the budget process, or throughout the year. If there was an expense that wasn't, a purchase that wasn't approved by council, we would have to bring back a report to enter into that.
Deputy Mayor.
Oh. Sorry, can I just ask quickly, because I asked and didn't hear the answer. Was this sort of reviewed by legal?
When we did the original when we did the original policy, it was reviewed by legal, but no, we did not get this reviewed by legal.
Well, I think with all this, the huge amounts of change here, that might be not a bad idea, because there might be some contradictions in there that we don't know about. But anyway, that's my comment. Thank you for.
So I don't think that I've necessarily changed legal language. Most of it was removal of items as well. I know that this is my 6th time updating a procurement policy, and I'm always looking at what other, I've got several comparator municipalities listed there as well. So, and then, I'm fairly confident that I haven't changed anything that would put us in a contradictory position to any of our procurement laws. but I'll leave that for committee to decide.
Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Rebecca, for sure, for a really detailed report. My only comment was what Councillor Withey asked around the limitations, and I read that, and I had a bit of the same reaction. Partially, I was a little bit confused, and so now that you and Julia have explained it, I get it, and I'm with you. But maybe you know, this is the language that you're used to, and so for lay people like myself, it's a bit it's not as clear, and so therefore certainly it begged the same question of me. I thought, okay, does that mean councils now? I wasn't sure what the answer was, so maybe just going over that part with just through the lens of someone who doesn't see this all the time might be helpful. Other than that, I mean, it was a really detailed report, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Sure, I can just give a little bit of a description of how the process works. So, like Julie had mentioned, the approval for any of our projects and funding comes from the budget, and then we enter into procurement. Depending, and there's going to actually be an expansion. So currently for our signing authority, it really only talks about the invoicing. So I'm going to be expanding that so that staff are aware of what their abilities are to commit. So where those levels come into place is that, up to that certain level, and it depends on the person that's going to be purchasing. Perhaps, in public works, they have higher authorities because they spend more money. But for an example, a staff member could have $25,000 to enter in procurement. But then after that level, they're going to their manager and then possibly to their director. So it will go up in a hierarchy, and I will be involved in those procurements as well, so that there is that, second set of eyes on everything that we're doing. So, and then once the appropriate person with the appropriate authority level awards, then that's basically, entering into the contract has been delegated to staff. And we would be coming back to council or committee for anything that's, hasn't been previously approved for funding, or is, a new project, that type of situation. So these are our regular procurements that have already been pre-approved by council through budget.
Councillor
Thank
Whitty.
you.
I guess my final comment would be, I'm not comfortable with this without a legal review. I appreciate, Rebecca, that you've done this before, but I do believe that the amount of changes here and the wordings that are being played around with, I'm not comfortable without it passing through a legal review.
CAO, would you have any comment on that?
Thank you, Worship. So if committee wishes to direct staff to proceed with a legal review, then we absolutely will do that. I know Rebecca has lots of experience with respect to procurement bylaws. She has made reference to many documents. But absolutely, if committee wishes for that to happen, I would just request that a motion be put on the floor directing staff to proceed with that review.
I think what we need to remember, though, fundamentally, the procurement policy is to protect staff and council from doing things they shouldn't do. So I think that updating our procurement policy and making sure that it addresses everything we're doing is actually for our protection. So I'm not sure I agree that it needs a legal review at this point. I think it's in place to protect us, not to do anything else. Councillor Armour.
Just to speak to legal review, I'm just curious, what would we get from a legal review? I'm not saying we don't need one. I'm just saying, what would that bring us? What different don't we have now?
She has a date and a time now, and it's earlier in the day.
Anybody answer that?
She doesn't.
Who would like to take that? CAO?
Yeah, just your worship, if Rebecca's comfortable answering that question, she's had lots of experience with procurement policies and reviews. So if she's comfortable, I'd ask for her to answer that question.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, Dan. I think the only legal review, would make sure that we are in compliance with the trade agreements, really, and they're referenced in the policy. So, as a municipality, we're responsible to follow the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, this Canadian European Trade Agreement, as well as the Municipal Act. So, I think from a legal perspective, they'd be looking at making sure we're in compliance with those trade agreements, as well as common law requirements, but that's really all I could see. The only thing I would see with a legal review too is just possibly making sure that we have any concerns that they might see from a bidder protest. Really, because that's where we would get into legal concerns if someone wanted to put in a protest or dispute one of our our contract awards that we've made. So that's what I would see from a legal review.
Thank you, and hi, Rebecca.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Worship. So if I understand this correctly, then no purchases or procurements are going to be made outside of limits that have already been pre-approved by council during the budget process. Is that basically what I'm hearing here, Rebecca?
That's correct.
And that's basically what we've been doing all along.
That's also correct.
Okay. So I really see no value or necessity for to have a lawyer come in and spend taxpayers' money on something that's not necessary.
Councillor Schumacher.
And correct me if I'm wrong, through you, Your Worship, to Rebecca and Julia, if that goes above what we had already designed within our budget, you guys always do come back to us with that, so that we know if we end up spending more, we're never spending more without the approval of council.
Yes, that's also correct. We've got Julia has the budget policy in place as well that sets out the requirements for approval of any of additional funds. So that is referenced in the update of this policy as well, that policy must be followed for any additional approvals.
Councillor Withey. Councillor, you're still on mute.
Sorry, thank you. I think what Councillor Thompson said, we're not mutually exclusive there. I don't think what he said was wrong about what's going on, but that doesn't eliminate a legal review. One doesn't cross the other. I'm just looking at the amount of change in this, and in my position as an elected official, I'm not comfortable with this huge, massive overhaul of this document without a legal review. And I can also add that a legal review for a document like this is not expensive at all. It's a drop in the bucket. And for my peace of mind, I'd like to see that this has been vetted and that there might be, for all I know, something in the wording here that's contradicting another clause in this document. Again, I'm not saying Rebecca isn't capable. I think she's very capable, but it's just, to me, a level of comfort that I think is important for this particular policy. And I'd like to put forward a motion if this is appropriate time to address that.
You certainly can put forward a motion. If you would like to tell the clerks what you're proposing, they will type that up immediately for you.
Thank you. I would propose that this document gets sent for legal review and then brought back to us for reconsideration or consideration again. Just, if they tick that box, then we're good. And I think it would be fairly fast and inexpensive. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thompson, I will get to you, but I think procedurally I have to read this now because Councillor Withey has put it on the table. So first off, I have it moved by Councillor Withey. Is there a seconder? Councillor Armour seconds. It is recommended It is recommended that Report Corp 2020-46 be postponed to allow time for staff to obtain a legal review of the procurement policy document. Discussion? Councillor Thompson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, with regards to this kind of thing, it seldom ever happens here at the municipal level. We see it more commonly at the district level, especially in public works when there are budget deviations. And whenever that happens, the report comes back to committee and then it goes to council. So if there is a particular tender or project or whatever that has gone over budget or coming in over budget, then it always comes back to committee. And then either adjustments are made in the budget to allow for the overage, or a budget deviation is required. So it's just pretty straightforward stuff. It's not rocket science, really.
Councillor Wiebe.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to clarify, we would ask for a legal review on just the changes made. Is that correct?
I would imagine, and Julia, correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine it's a legal review of the final policy. I don't think we need a review of changes. We need a review of our policy, correct?
I believe if a lawyer was looking at it for compliance, they'd have to look at the full agreement, not just changes.
Right. Okay, you've heard the motion to postpone. All in favor? And opposed? That carries. So the resolution, as I read, has been postponed to allow for legal review. Thank you. And we will move on to your next report, Rebecca, hopefully.
I'm not batting very well.
Let's see if we can do better on this one. Moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Wiebe. It is recommended that committee direct staff to work with the Clean Air Partnership to apply to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for community efficiency financing. And further, that the town, should the town be successful with the application, staff be directed to undertake market analysis feasibility study work for a home retrofit program. Rebecca, tell us all about that one.
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. So this one is a grant application that is being submitted by the Clean Air Partnership, which is a charitable environmental organization. So the idea with this is that they're putting the application in with a group of municipalities, and that we would be one of them. Other ones include City of Barrie, London, Owen Sound, Peterborough, Kingston, Kawartha Lakes, and Dufferin County. And at this point, it's just looking for support to be part of that application. It's not committing us to necessarily moving forward with this. There's the possibility that they don't receive the funding to conduct these feasibility studies. But if they were successful, then we would be looking to commit some staff time to doing some research and data collection for the possibility of a feasibility study for a home retrofit program. And I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to look at what City of Toronto is doing. They're currently the only ones with the program like this in place, where basically residents can apply for funding through the municipality, and which it's through grants to get a loan for upgrades for retrofit to their properties. So this is to start the process first and support for staff to participate in this program. We think it's something that's innovative and unique, and that the town of Huntsville would like to be a part of, to support some of our strategic plan and our unity plan with our goals respect to climate change.
Thank you. Questions, Council? Councillor Stone.
So aside from the 2 weeks of staff time to help this grant proposal get forward, if it's successful, is it going to cost the town anything in money or labor?
Not at this stage. So we're just in the feasibility study. So the grant is really for the Clean Air Partnership to be doing most of the work. So it's not going to be, there's not going to be any money requirement from us. So they've asked for $170,000 for the grant for these studies and to basically do the work on our behalf in a cohort approach so that it's not going to impact the municipalities.
But going forward, there would be nothing, no expense.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Rebecca. Great report, Rebecca. And I support it 100%. Thanks for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Rebecca, thank you so much for putting this report together. I'm thrilled by it. And so we're just going forward as part of a partnership with other municipalities. That's great. Did you reach out to the district of Muskoka? Because you'll be aware that we've just passed the climate change emergency, and they've already reported on their full climate change strategy. So this would fit so nicely in it. And I'm just curious what the conversation has been with the district. Anyway, I do support it, and I'm thrilled about the report.
Thank you. So, and maybe I'll let Julia speak to this a little bit as well, because I wasn't initially involved in the original, interactions. But at this point, I believe, the application's been submitted. The district is not a part of that. So I'm not necessarily sure if they were aware of this opportunity or how the town of Huntsville became aware of it. Maybe Julia, you can speak to that.
Sure, thank you. So this was an initiative that AMO was looking at with FCM. So they've reached out to certain municipalities to see so who would want to participate. So I'm not sure if the district was, and they may not have wanted to participate if they were doing something differently. The other thing with this program is if it does end up going forward. So right now we're not giving any approval to go forward with the actual project. This is just for the feasibility start. And if the feasibility was good and we did want to participate, this would be a full discussion back at this group to see if we did actually want to participate. But part of the premise is that when you did have the loan, etc., it would go onto your property taxes. So maybe that's why it was done at the lower levels instead of the district, because the district doesn't have that administration.
Okay. No further questions? Okay, you've heard the resolution. All in favor? And that carries. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to budget. A resolution moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Armour. It is recommended the committee approve the 2020 Q3 forecasted operating budget deviations as outlined in Appendix B of Report Corp 2020-45. Julia and Riva, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. So first of all, I think it's really important to note, again, with this forecast, that staff are continuing to do an excellent job of adding comments that correspond to their forecast. As we continue to refine and make improvements to our quarterly forecasting process, it's just going to keep getting better and better. So I also wanted to note a couple things with respect to the forecast. So the 2020 year-to-date actuals column in Appendix A of the report only represents the actuals to the end of September. The forecast is also based on staff's estimate at a point in time. So for this forecast, that point in time was in late October, early November. So there may be further refinements required to the forecast that have arisen since the forecast was done. So on October 28th, finance staff presented a revised financial update, which showed an estimated savings of about $352,000, which was forecasting operations to the end of 2020. Since then, departmental staff have prepared their third quarter forecasts. So this updated forecast, which again is included in Appendix A of the report, shows an estimated operating surplus of $307,000. This means that the town was able to employ cost-saving measures to more than offset the lost revenues as a result of the COVID-19 restrictions. I think it's really important to note here that this surplus is recommended to go towards funding the cost of the Williamsport Road Emergency Capital Project of $275,000. So with this forecast, there really weren't any substantial changes between the latest financial update in October and this new forecast. So one relatively large change that makes up the majority of the difference was an increase of approximately $60,000 in roads consulting fees, and that was with respect to Greer Road. So in keeping with the budget policy, a summary of the budget deviations included in the Q3 forecast has been provided in Appendix B to the report. So these show the forecasted deviations from the originally approved 2020 budget. Many of the deviations have remained unchanged from the approved Q2 forecast deviations. However, there are a few new items, and I'd like to go through these deviations in detail just so everybody knows kind of what they are. So I am just going to share my screen. Okay, so can everybody see this deviations?
Yep, that's good.
Yep, okay. Okay, so the very first one, this remained unchanged from the Q2 deviations, and this was just a savings in the SWB line in legislative services, and that was with respect to the corporate services restructuring that was approved by council earlier this year. The next one down is a land purchase. So that was the parking lot purchase, which is not budgeted for. The amount was funded through the Forbes Hill Reserve and was previously approved by council. So there was no change there from Q2. The insurance deductible, and that's just based on staff's knowledge of the claims and expected reduction in the budgeted amount. So this hasn't changed since Q2. The insurance surplus, this is increased by about $5,000 since Q2, and this is just the surplus in the insurance budget. So essentially, what staff is recommending, and I know we talked about transferring the surplus in the insurance budget to the insurance stabilization reserve at the end of the year. And again, that's subject to year-end numbers and to council approval. So this item was on the Q2 deviations, but it's just increased by about $5,000 since then. So the $105,000 tax penalty change, this hasn't changed since Q2. And this was because we waived tax penalties from March 31st to September 30th. The next item down is tax write-offs of $265,000. So since Q2, there were some relatively large commercial properties that were settled in 2020, and those weren't budgeted for. Supplementary taxes was on the Q2 deviations, although this has changed because of supplementary taxes that we've actually received since the Q2 forecast. We've increased these revenues by $250,000. The $25,000 one-time employee cost, that hasn't changed from the Q2 deviations that was approved previously by committee. The $661,000, that's the COVID Safe Restart Phase 1 funding that we've received. Those funds will be transferred into the COVID-19 reserve. And again, there's been no change since the Q2 forecast. There is an additional item for the COVID-19 assessment center, and this is just funding for the assessment center of about $30,000, and that's new since the last forecast. The promotion for the COVID-19 contribution to the Chamber of Commerce, the $30,000, again, that was included in the Q2 deviation, so there's been no change there. Another item, a new item in Q3. So throughout community services, there were some minor variances in each of the budgets. So this is an overall reduction in the revenues. So it's the aggregate of all of those minor revenue reductions in community services. And that's all related to COVID-19 revenue reductions. So that's just, you know, there might have been a $5,000 decrease in revenue in one line, a $10,000 decrease in another line. So each individual item is not a deviation, but combined it is. So we've included it on this deviations listing. Down a little bit here. Okay, so this next item here, this $844,000, that has decreased since the Q2 deviations, and it was included on there, but that deviation in the Q2 did not include the reopening of the pool or the arena. So that's gone down by a couple $100,000 because of the opening of those facilities and programs. The next item down is materials and supplies with respect to COVID program closures. So there have actually been further cost reductions since the last Q2 forecast. So that number has actually gone up. We've reduced costs even more since the last forecast. So with respect to the contractors line, there is a reduction due to limited spending because of COVID, no Canada Day event. So there was a reduction in the savings of $7,000 from Q2. So that there's a little bit more cost. It was about $7,000 more cost included in this Q3 forecast. And that's just based on the actuals. Again, the forecasts are based on our estimates at a point in time. So it is, you know, it is expected for these things to fluctuate slightly throughout the year as more information becomes available through COVID. With the MHP revenues, this was included on the deviations in Q2, but we've actually seen, as a result of the actuals that we took in from MHP admissions, we've actually seen an increase in revenues of about $29,000 from our latest, or from the Q2 forecast. So, so that's, you know, a great news story. The MHP did really wonderfully this year. Sorry, a new item, the next item, the insurance recovery of $29,000. So that's arisen since the Q2 forecast. And it's largely due to an insurance recovery for the snow guards at the Canis Summit Center that wasn't previously budgeted for. Oops, okay. So further down, the hydro reduction, this reduction has gone down slightly by about $47,000 since the last deviation. And that's because the pool and the arena reopened. And there's obviously some hydro costs associated with running those. Natural gas, same thing. There was a decrease in the savings that was reported in the Q2 deviations, and that's just, again, because the pool and the arena have opened since then. The $60,000 increase in costs in building repairs and maintenance is largely due to repairs and maintenance that was required at the library building, and that's based on the actual costs. So there are a number of items, you know, the facility rental, the floor lacrosse revenue, ice minor hockey revenue, all of these items, these were all included on the Q2 deviation summary. The amounts have changed slightly in that, you know, we've increased our revenue from the Q2 deviations, again, because we opened the pool and the arena. And so we are expecting to get some revenue from those sources. Okay, so a number of items that were on the Q2 deviations that were removed. So water and sewer both had deviations in the Q2, but because of a reduction in the savings that we were seeing, because we did reopen the pool and the arena, those items are no longer, you know, a deviation. They're not more than $25,000 off what we were originally budgeted. So those have been removed from the deviations, from the deviation summary. Another item is the rental surcharge revenue. So we did include that as a deviation in the Q2 forecast. But again, that's because we weren't expecting, because the pool and the arena weren't open, we weren't expecting, you know, much in the way of rental revenues. So because we're seeing an increase in revenues, we're also seeing an increase in rental surcharge revenue, which again, now it's less than $25,000 off of what was originally budgeted. So it's no longer a deviation. So this contributions to others, it was included on the Q2 deviations, although it's increased by about $14,000 because of further waived rental fees. So, you know, instructional courses, membership revenues, registration fees, those were all included on the Q2 deviation summary. But again, we're seeing an increase in revenues because the arena and the pool are open. The theater recovery revenue, there has been a further reduction of $2,400 based on the actuals. So that was included on the last summary, but it's a little bit higher now. The next two items down, they were included on the Q2 deviations, but there's been no change in those. So in development services, the SWB reduction of the part-time SWB, sorry, there's actually been a further reduction of $7,000 since the Q2 deviation. So that's an extra savings of $7,000. The building permit revenue has increased pretty substantially from the Q2 forecast. So since our last deviation report, we've actually increased revenues here by $278,000 since Q2. So, and that's just based on actual activity. One new item is the fee rebates for affordable housing. So this is just a revised forecast based on staff's anticipated costs. So the building is self-funded, or building department is self-funded through the building reserve. So there is no net levy impact to this one. The short-term rental permits, there's been no change in that since Q2. Site plan agreements, there's been a further reduction of $8,000 in this revenue since the Q2 forecast, and that's just based on staff's anticipated revenue. Now, consulting fees in planning, the secondary plan had a further cost reduction of about $37,000 since Q2. So this item was included on that listing, but it's increased now. So a further savings there. So with respect to the municipal accommodation tax, the revenue item is new, and that's just in the difference between how we budget and how we receive the actuals. So we budget based on you know, our costs that we budget. And then the MAT revenue that we've actually brought in is quite substantially higher than that. There is no net levy impact because of the way that revenue is treated. So any unspent funds are put into the municipal accommodation tax reserve. There was the licensing fee in the MAT sheet has also been removed for the Ironman 2020 cancellation. The promotion and special events item in the MAT budget has been further reduced by $15,000. The economic development video and content marketing has been removed now as well. So the contributions to other, again, that's just a difference between how we budget. So that $257,000 includes the amount that's paid to the MAT board quarterly. So the SWB reduction, so that's mainly related to the delay of the fire chief position and reduction of SWB related to COVID closures. The next item down is the $56,000 in consulting fees, and I'm sorry, there is a typo there. So this is consulting fees related to the Greer Road project. So that's an additional item that arose since the Q2 forecast. And then the contractor line. So since the Q2, there's been a reduction in the savings of $17,000, and that's just based on the actual cost that we've seen to date. There was actually in the provincial grant for the transit funding, there's an additional $8,000 received for enhanced cleaning. And then the Lake of Bays contribution. So this is just a reduction based on estimated costs. And there was a further reduction of $10,000 based on the actuals. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And I'm available for questions on the operating forecast, and we will discuss capital in a few minutes. That's the next report.
Questions, Council? Lots of information on those sheets. I've actually got one while you guys think then. In the changes to the MAT revenues and expenses, this suggests we've spent more money out of the MAT fund than we actually have in it. Would that be correct? I mean, on this sheet it is correct, so.
So let me just see. I'm just going to open. So essentially what happens is we take in the revenue and we pay out 70% of that to the Municipal Accommodation Tax Board. So the budget deviations is showing the difference between budget and our forecast. So in the Municipal Accommodation Tax budget, we had budgeted $183,000 for our revenue. And that's just essentially we budget the revenue to offset our budgeted costs. So what we think we're going to spend out of the MAT fund. We do not budget for the contribution to the MAT board. So that's why the deviation is showing more substantial in the contributions to others line. So there actually are a number of projects that were included in the MAT budget for 2020 that are not moving forward, like the Ironman licensing fees of $25,000, like the economic development, content marketing and video. There was an MHP video included in there that, you know, it just, with COVID and timing of the season, wasn't able to get done in 2020. So there are a number of projects that were budgeted that did not happen. So our actual spending in projects is actually quite a bit less than what we were anticipating. That contributions to other line is higher, but that's just the percentage of the revenue that we take in that gets paid out to the MAT board, right? So we're still keeping our 30% of those funds, and that 30%, you know, is.
I realize that, but I think the $257,000 of contributions to others is money that we're committing to other people out of our 30%, and the commitment is higher than the intake. So I just want to point out that before we make any more commitments of that money, we're committing more than we have. So I think that's something that council should be well aware of.
So, and I'm just going to look in here. So the of that $257,000 difference, $238,000 of that is the 70% contribution to the MAT board. So that's just their piece of the pie that we give them. That's not budgeted for separately. That's why it's showing as a big deviation, because it's not specifically budgeted, that 70% contribution to the MAT board.
Julia?
If I can just add something too, just now that we have a year under our belts too, we can adjust the budget for 2021 so that it better reflects that. So this was our first year with that. So we'll adjust that so it's a lot clearer next year.
Are there any other questions, council? Okay, thanks for that summary. You've heard the resolution. All in favor? And that carries. Do you want to keep going right into capital? Okay.
Okay. So with the Q3 capital forecast report, included in Appendix A to the report is a summary of the Q3 forecasted capital project spending. And that report is indicating that approximately $209,000 less spending is expected to occur than what we originally budgeted for. So included in this amount is about $420,000 of costs related to the modernization fund capital purchases. And there's also $275,000 related to the emergency capital project at Williamsport Road. So as I mentioned earlier, the recommendation of staff is to fund the Williamsport Road costs of $275 through the working capital reserve, which in effect means that the project will be funded through the 2020 surplus. So again, in keeping with the budget policy, a summary of the capital budget deviations has been provided in Appendix B. So I'd like to go through those deviations in detail now so that everybody knows exactly what they are. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so everybody can see the deviations? Yep, okay. All right, so the very first one, the $30,000 in financial services, that's the work order management system that will be funded through the modernization fund. And that report was brought forward in July and approved by committee in July. The next item down is the MHP locomotive that was budgeted for in 2020. So a grant wasn't obtained in 2020, and that project was conditional upon receiving a grant. So the project is deferred to 2021, and it was in our capital projects listing for 2021. And it's to remain conditional upon receiving a grant. The next item down, the $75,000 in facilities, again, is a modernization project, and it's the faucet replacement for facilities. The $50,000 is the deferral of the Engine A air handling unit that was budgeted in 2020. And also the next item down is the deferral of the exhaust rooftops. And in discussions with the facilities manager, those projects, are not a priority for 2020. So they've been able to be deferred to future years. In sales and customer service, there's a community service master plan. And again, that's to be funded through the modernization fund that was brought forward in that July report. In the theater, there's a deferral of the sound equipment project of $41,000. And with the theater not operating for most of 2020, the project just didn't need to be done. So there are a number of items in roads and fleet. This first one here is the MHP pickup truck. And again, the purchase, because of manufacturer constraints, we weren't able to make that purchase this year, and that was for $35,000. The water tank insert, again, is a modernization fund item, which was included in that July report. The boom mower, again, a modernization item, which was included in the July report. The next three items down, the $70,000 and two $35,000 purchases, these were deferral of projects. So there was a 3-ton pickup truck and 2 fleet pickup trucks that were couldn't move forward because of manufacturing constraints. Excuse me. The next item down is the snow blower for the loader, and the costs were higher than anticipated. So this was brought forward to council in June of 2020. So that was a cost overage of about $39,000. So another deferral, there was a sand and salt shed project budgeted for 2020. So again, because of, wanting to limit COVID spending, this project has been put on hold. So the next couple of items, the chipper and the traffic signals, those again were modernization projects, which were included in the July report. So the next item down, this actually should have been changed to $275,000. And this was the Williamsport Road beaver damage. And that's what staff is recommending be funded through the working capital reserve. So essentially what happens with our operating surplus is it's transferred into the working capital reserve. And then we're proposing that this $275,000 be funded through that working capital. So in effect, our 2020 surplus is funding this emergency capital project. So the next item down, there was an $84,000 overage in the sidewalks capital project, and that was largely due to the Rogers Cove design work. In Etwell Bridge, the actual costs were less than anticipated. So there was a reduction in grant revenues to offset that, but there was the cost reduction was actually greater than the reduction in grant revenue. So there was a further savings of $33,000 there. So there was additional spending in the storm study project for zones 1 and 2 of $70,000. The Rivermill Park project costs were $51,000 less than anticipated, so there was some savings there. Hunters Bay Trail was $37,000 over what was originally budgeted. There's also the Clark Crescent Tennis Courts project has been deferred because a public meeting is required to determine what to do with that. The fire training facility project has been deferred as a result of COVID, so there was savings of $70,000 there. And the training ground containers and live burn project, again, was a modernization fund project that was brought forward in the July report. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm available for questions.
Questions? Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Rebecca, for that, or Reva for that, sorry. A quick question around the Rogers Cove design work. Was that part of the connection to the new Muskoka Landing expansion? Because when we approved that, or when the OMB approved it, we had a connection for trail work there that was supposed to connect to Rogers Cove, I believe. So I was just curious if they contributed to that design work or if that's an entirely separate beast.
And thank you through you, Your Worship. I'm not 100% sure of the answer on that. I don't know if Julia or Denise has any further information, or I just saw Steve come online, so I'm sure you have the answer to that one, Steve.
Thanks, Reva. Sorry about that.
Steve?
Through you, Mayor Terziano. So the Roger Cove trail work was the bridge that we had to take out of there. There was the bridge that came out. It used to be a walking bridge that wouldn't hold our equipment. And to connect up with the new development, we corrected our trail down there, replaced the bridge with a retaining wall, if you will. So it's more sidewalk work than design work. And that's all been redone down there. So it'll connect nicely now with the Rogers Cove and sidewalks, if that's the money you're referring to.
I think, if I may, Your Worship, I just wanted to follow up. I did see the picture in the presentation that's coming later, which is really great. And so I wanted to say that's really cool. And it's great to see it happen. And basically what you're saying, Steve, is that that's our piece of it. It's the municipal piece that connects to the Muskoka Landing piece. So all I'm looking for is they will be responsible for something within the near future, right? Their piece of it?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, that is correct. They're responsible for the big chunk in the middle. We come down by the LCBO store, and then they take over, and then we pick up again where the bridge was.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? I have one, and maybe Steve might want to come back. The 3 vehicles that we couldn't fill the order for because of manufacturers, have we just taken them off? Did we do something else in fleet, or have we just pushed them to next year?
We've pushed them to a 2021 purchase. What we did this year is we ran short, but we were also fortunate in some regards that we didn't have as much staff needing them with different facilities and events closed down. So we just made do with this year. We are short vehicles now, and we've increased the purchase numbers for 2021. I believe our 21 budget capital approved, I think, shows 6 small trucks, where as opposed to doing 3 each year.
Okay, thank you. And Reva, at the bottom of this page where we have total deviations, we have 257,000 basically overspent, I read this to be. And is that 209 underspent, or? What's the red number and the black number down there, signify.
Let me just see here. So I will need to get back to you on that one because yes, it does look like the deviations above are totaling overspent.
Okay, you can let me know that later. Okay, Council, I forgot to read the resolution before this report. It was moved by Councillor Withy, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It is recommended the committee approve the 2020 Q3 forecasted capital budget deviations as outlined in Appendix B of Corp 2020-51, and further that the unexpected capital roadworks for Williamsport Road in the amount of approximately $275,000 be funded through the working capital reserve. Questions on the resolution? All in favor? And that carries. Yep. And the next resolution, staying with this same theme, is moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Thompson. It is recommended that the revised project listing as outlined in Appendix A to Report Corp 2020-44 be approved. And further, that any items listed to be spent in 2021 be included in the draft 2021 operation and capital budget. Reva, were you going to go through this list as well, or?
I was going to highlight some of the changes on it.
Sure, Julia, go ahead.
So, so we just wanted to bring forward a revised listing. We had originally said that everything was going to be spent in 2020. So we just want to bring forward what the changes are. We also had some projects that came in under budget or under what we originally anticipated, and some were taken off. So if you look at the ones, if you go through the appendix here. So the first one, I'm not sure, do you want me to share my screen here? I can just go through this. Can you see this okay, the Excel sheet?
Yep.
Okay. So the first one here is the work order system, service request system that was approved. So this is just splitting it up between 2020 and 21. So we'll put the remaining amount in 21. In corporate services, we had, or legislative services, we had one-time IT security services that we originally thought we could do in 2020. That's been moved to 21. The next one is the planning GIS technician. So this isn't a change of that program, of that position. It just shifted when that person has been employed just due to the delay in COVID. So it just putting some amounts back over to the 2021 budget, but not changing the original allocation. The vehicle scanner. So these are, you'll see in the appendix, some amounts have come in under budget, and I won't go through each of those. They've already been completed. The solar power streetlights, that project has been canceled, so we've removed the amounts for that of 10,000 and reallocated that. Sorry. We did have 70,000 booked for the community services recreation master plan, and we had that in for 2020, hoping that we could get that substantially done by the end of this year. However, we're looking at starting that, getting the RFP out and getting it started full swing in 2021. So that's moving that to the next year. There was 20,000 put in for the online planning application. That was part of the project that the building department was doing. However, they're looking at not implementing that at this time. So that amount's been removed from the allocation. Sorry, the next one is the touchless toilets and faucets at town facilities. So originally it was in at $75,000. In doing the RFP for that, we're looking at, we need to add an additional 23,000. So of the funding, we're looking at adding 13 to be coming from the modernization, with the remainder coming out of 2020's operating budget savings facilities. And again, the RP has been done for that one. The next one is in the 2021 draft budget, we've put in a total of $15,500 for the webcasting. So using modernization funds of 5,500 of that to help fund that. And then the last one is an IT review. So that's to conduct an IT service review for the whole corporation of $60,000.
Okay, questions? Just one for me. The projects that didn't get started in 2020 that were supposed to come from the modernization fund, can they still come from the modernization fund in 21?
So the projects that we don't believe will get done in 2021, we've moved them over to, or sorry, in 2020, we've moved them over to 21 on this document. So that's this revised listing. So if there is something that, I believe most of these projects will be done that do say 2020, at least started or the purchase order initiated. Is there one in particular you were?
Well, the community master plan, it looks like it's been pushed.
So we pushed that to 2021. So we anticipate getting the RFP out for it. I believe it's almost drafted, getting that out in December and then starting the work in 2021.
So anything that we were funding from the modernization will be started in 2020, even though it may not be completed in 2020. Is that correct?
Unless we've indicated otherwise, but I believe all of them have been initiated at this point. But we have moved the funding over. So one of them is the IT review. We have not started that one yet, and we probably will not start that until 2021.
Okay, but the report that you guys brought to us and said you felt that we had to spend this money this year, and so we had to identify projects that would start this year. You're not now telling me that some of them are not starting this year.
So there are some that have. So the one that's been delayed a little bit was the community services master plan. So we're looking at putting that RFP out this year, but then doing the majority of the work next year. There was some savings in some of the other items, and there was some items that came off. So when we looked at the list, we wanted to come up with some other recommendations that we could do. And one of them is the IT master or the IT service review. So that's one that we will start in early 2021, but it will not be finished in 2020. So the original intent was to make sure that we are spending this money efficiently so that we are getting these projects done and not for longer term projects. So these are ones that we anticipate will be done in the next 6 months.
Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Julia. I just a quick question. The reference to the project, and it's been canceled. It was previously approved, and I just can't remember when we canceled it and why we canceled it.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what project it was, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, sorry. The trial project of 4 solar-powered street lights. And it was previously approved for 10,000, and I was just curious. I can't remember canceling it and why and if we did, why did we cancel it?
Steve?
If I could, through you, Mayor Terziano, that was a staff decision to cancel it. We had approval to go forward with it. All the indications we had is that they were working properly. When we did our final research and checked references, we started to get some bad feedback. The product that was out there was in fact having problems. It was not performing the way it was. So we thought rather than invest in it at this time, we would hold off until the product is redeveloped to give the brighter light. We use solar lights now over the sidewalks. They work fine, but to give us the street illumination that we need, we found out that the product would not perform properly throughout the night.
Deputy Mayor Alcock?
Thank you for that. Just a quick follow-up. So thanks for that, Steve. That's appreciated. Can I take from that then that it hasn't necessarily gone away, that we will revisit when the product gets better?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, yeah, exactly. And we're working with one of the suppliers on that now to see if we can be a demo site, if you will, for them, because that's our goal, is to get to a solar light. Would save us the electricity costs and all the wiring requirements as well.
So almost maybe instead of cancel, it could be deferred or something.
Yes.
Okay, council, you heard the resolution, all in favor? And that carries. Okay, council, we're going to take about a 7-minute break, and we'll see everybody back here at 11:05. Okay. Oh, we're almost all back. Everybody get a cup of coffee, cookie? Okay, we're all back. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Wiebe. It is recommended that committee direct staff to place on hold the license of occupation application for 77 Ontario Street to recognize the existing location of a 440 square foot dock located on town land adjacent to the property for staff to conduct a full review of the town relevant policies and plans and report back to committee in 2021. Tanya, are you with us? Yeah. You want to tell us about this?
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. So this license of occupation application was received and it was circulated to staff. Staff also reviewed if there was ever one issued before, and we are unable to find one ever issued before. When the application was circulated to staff, we received one comment back from the Parks Department, and Director Hernan is here today as well to help answer any questions regarding that. It was determined that due to the location of the application, it might be conducive to use that by the town in the future. So it is town property now, but as Ms. Vasey noted earlier, she's placed a dock on there. So the license of occupation policy allows for us to take any applications that are a little contentious to general committee, and hence why we're here. Now, the other thing about the license of application policy is that it talks about us giving leases to these types of properties, but then we have the strategic plan that says not to give away waterfront, and also the unity plan says the same. So we're kind of in a conflict. We know that there are a lot of these out there that are not licensed, which puts the municipality at risk in regards to insurance and whatnot. We also have some properties that have been licensed, as you are aware, Row Road area, they come up for renewal next year. So because of these conflicting policies, we thought it best not to do anything at this time and just step back and have a review of everything so we can not only understand what council would like with these properties, but also to help people who have these types of situations. That is kind of our concept, but we are going to need time to do that. In discussions with Director Hernan and CAO Corey and Colleen McDonald as well, we decided that it was more prudent to get this right for all involved instead of entering into these things without it being for the best of everybody. The license of application policy doesn't outline the municipality as per what council considers as areas of interest to them. It just lets us willy-nilly choose staff ourselves. So that's our thought.
Questions, Council? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Couple of things. According to the deputation earlier to this morning, there is an existing dock now. There has been some confusion over the ownership of this property, I guess from way back. It was only discovered recently that the town does own it. And the other thing, with regards to the frontage there, as the applicant mentioned this morning, I guess the distance between the existing road and the water itself is somewhere between 2 and 12 feet, over 158 feet of shoreline type of thing. Does the shore road allowance apply in this particular situation? I realize there's the Ontario Street is between the house and the water, but does shore road apply in this particular situation? Can someone answer that for me?
Who wants to take that? Steve?
So my understanding on that is no, the shore road allowance doesn't take place in this because it's attached to a road allowance. Shore road allowance would apply if the property owner abutted directly to it. But because there's a municipal road between their property and the waterfront, the shore road does not apply. This is more of a road allowance issue. And as our clerk Tanya Kalea spoke to and highlighted in that report, we're dealing right now, I think the last count I had is about 37 of these that we're now aware of. There was some confusion with the ownership of the property down in that Bay area, but now it's been clarified to us that no, it is in fact town ownership. We've now located 5 other docks, which are located on town ownership property, we believe, without proper licensing. So that's why we're suggesting as staff is that we just hit the pause button, and we've been working on this to deal with this and the many other situations we're dealing with. We're dealing with 2 that came up on Longs Lake. We've got Row Road, and we just turned an application down on Row Road 2 weeks ago. Similar things. We've got South Portage Road, which is now raised its head with issues down there. So we really do need some clarification, and we're simply just asking council. We're not saying say yes or no to this. We're just saying just hit pause. Let us bring back a more in-depth policy that deals with these docks on town property. Let's get some clear direction, and then we can go ahead and move forward on these. The other issues we're dealing with these is we have people that do not abut property that have docks located. We have associations which are looking to put docks in, which we have no means for in this policy. And if we were to proceed as the applicant indicated and issued this license to her, as soon as she sells the property, it's non-transferable. So we could issue her a license today, and on sale in 30 days from now, the license is no good, and we'd be starting all over again with the new applicant. And the policy doesn't allow us to acknowledge the new applicant today because they don't own property. So we're not saying yes or no. I think the end result will probably be the applicant will get their dock. If I was to could tell the fortunes, but I think we just need some direction, and we're just asking council to allow us the time to bring back a full policy, have a full discussion, and find a resolve for these.
Follow up, Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for that, Steve. And I think you're on the right path here. The one question I do have, though, with regards to this particular property, the fact that there has been a dock there for so many years, this owner and previous owners and so on and so forth, going back to who knows when, would prescriptive rights apply in this particular situation?
Steve?
Excellent question. I don't know the answer, but I can tell you that 2 lawyers will not close a deal on this property unless they get something in writing from the council. So I have not sought legal opinion on it, but I'm thinking if 2 lawyers will not close this deal without an occupation permit, would tell me that they have no prescriptive rights, or at least they don't feel they have any grounds to. And that's why they're pushing their clients to get this occupation. But I have not sought legal opinion. I'm just looking at what 2 lawyers are looking at today.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I mean, I know through you to Director Hernan, we've had a lot of conversation, and I know living in the area, there has been a number of docks, say on Longs Lake, on Mary Lake, that, you know, chances are they are on town property. I guess this is probably not to Director Hernan, but maybe to the town clerk Tanya Kalea. Do we collect waterfront taxes, as she has been indicating? So she's been paying waterfront taxes to the town for 10 years on property that is town property? Or Julia may know that.
Julia?
So we can't speak directly to this property, but there are no waterfront taxes. We only have one tax rate, so it's based on your assessment. So when reaching out to MPAC, they do have a category for waterfront property, which this applicant has indicated she has. But then there's some negative factors that play into that assessment for indirect waterfront, for right-of-way access or use of waterfront. So there are some negative impacts on that. So it wouldn't be the same as somebody who had owned that property outright. So the assessment would likely be, if you had 2 exact properties, the one that had the the indirect access, so the right of way, would have less assessment than the one that actually owned that property.
Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Your Worship. These things have been issues forever. I know when I was on council before, we had it at Row Road, and it, you know, I have a problem with people just squatting on town land and then using it in real estate deals to sort of say, look, I've got waterfront property, claiming as Councillor Schumacher's excellent question about, they all claim, well, we're paying waterfront taxes, when in actual fact they aren't. That's something we discovered a number of years ago on a Row Road situation. I think that this motion is a good one. I think that we need to really get into this stuff because it is all over the place, and I know that people are you know, almost claiming, you know, under false pretenses that this is my dock and this is, you know, I can sell it for, and, you know, inflate the house of my price or price of my house for having waterfront, when in fact they don't. They just happen to build in proximity to water. So anyway, there's legal issues here again, and I think we need to follow the advice here and approve this. Thanks.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the report, and I know it's something that we have been dealing with for a long time, and we need to mitigate the risk to the municipality. And I agree that we need to, when we do come up with the answer, that it needs to be inclusive of association and cover off more of the details that are missing. I guess my thought process of this particular situation in the 4 or 5 other docks that are in this location, there doesn't seem to be a municipal use as far as I'm concerned. The only thing that troubles me is if we do go into an arrangement of a license of occupation, what if we want to do something with the roads? So, you know, the policy would need to be inclusive of people removing those docks at their own expense if the town were having to do any roadworks of any kind. I think it's special circumstances there where the docks have been there for so long that there may be some possible litigation, which the municipality should also consider. But I think, again, we should support this report. If the license of occupation is not transferable, it doesn't seem to make any sense or have any bearing on this particular real estate transaction, which for all intents and purposes really is not a responsibility of the town to be concerned with. Although I do feel for the applicant, I think we should pursue as directed with our options in this report. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Alcock. Nope. Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Just to echo those sentiments, I agree also we should be moving ahead with this. I do have one question about the report, though. In her deputation, she talked about the waterfront being muddy and rocky, etc. But I think in our report, it says it's a sandy shoreline. So are we talking about the same area there, or are they talking closer down towards the dam?
Anybody? Steve?
So down a little closer to the dam, it's certainly sandy. I didn't go down her steps by her dock, by her personal property, and look at every piece of shoreline along there. But there was a spot down by the dam, which was much more of a sandier, slow slope than a couple of other docks where we were looking at. I'm sure there's some mud, I'm sure there's some rocks, I'm sure there's a bit of everything along there, but I did not look directly at her dock location.
Councillor Fitzgerald?
Just to help out with that description, there is a bit of a rocky shoreline, and it's quite soft silt, so it's a bit mucky in the area where those docks are located on Ontario Street. over closer to the dam, it's hard packed sand.
Councillor Stone?
As much as I empathize with the applicant and their situation, wanting to sell the house and having prospective buyers, council's responsibility here is perfectly clear to protect any and all public access to water, in my opinion. I think it's paramount. My question to Director Hernan is, how long will it take staff to come back with a report on these situations?
Steve?
It would be a joint project between the clerk's department, parks, and our whole division. But I'd like to think that we're going to have this cleaned up long before the spring, so we can deal with all these issues that we're dealing with. So I would suggest we'll have something in front of council no later than February, early March.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. That was going to be my final comment, is I didn't want to see it maybe just all of 2021. I wanted to see it happen before spring. So glad to know that it will be a top priority. All in favor then, council? That carries. Okay, new business. We have a report by our new fire chief, Rob Collins, on the fire department activities. Hi, Rob. Welcome. We're not getting any sound, Rob. I'm not sure why. You're not on mute. Check your volume on your computer. Still nothing.
On the top row of your computer, there'll be volumes up, down, and a microphone. Just make sure that one of those buttons isn't red. And perhaps, Your Worship, if we wanted to slide to the next item.
I was going to say, Rob, you get that sorted out. We'll just go to Colleen first and come back to you. Colleen, are you ready to give us a Parks and Cemetery update?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you for the time to, within the agenda, to share some information with you. I realized that the photos, etc., were included in the agenda package, but I wanted the opportunity to be before you and answer any questions or provide additional information should you require any. So if you'll bear with me for a second, I'm going to share a screen. Here we've listed some of the major capital projects we've worked on this year in 2020, as well as some activities we've been up to with our operational staff. One of the larger projects we've been working on since the fall of 2019 is the renovation of the McCully Robertson ball diamonds. And I'm happy to tell you that we're at the conclusion of that project, and the lights work. There were, of course, some delays at the beginning of the season due to COVID, and we got the project back on track. And you can see the new ball diamonds, the new infield surfaces here on this photo. The dugouts have shades, permanent shades, sunscreens for the players to be protected. And this photo shows the size of the new backstops. And so they're quite a contrast to what was there previously.
this photo also shows that the lights are on. So that was part of the technical glitch we had in the spring, was waiting for some parts to arrive that were coming from overseas. So there were some legitimate delays in some of the product that were required to complete the project. And here in the cluster of diamonds, A, B, and C, there's a central garden with a specimen tree, as well as some seating with some natural rock there that enhances the area for public use, not just the people using the ball diamonds, but members of the public viewing as well. We did resurface the courts at Conroy Park, as has been discussed earlier in this meeting. So these courts were built in 2009, 2010. And so the resurfacing that has just been done, not just the surface, but some cracks were repaired, etc., that are sort of a normal part of the aging of a structure like this. So this is fairly fresh. You can see the tennis lines here, as well as the green pickleball lines that are inside of the white lines. Just one more photo of Conroy Park. Early in the year, we put out the RFP to have the original floating section of Hunters Bay Trail replaced. And our contractor got started in January. In fact, they worked on the ice surface, provided an excellent work platform for them to remove the old sections of floating trail, and then they replaced the entire section. So it's been in use all season. It's as all of us know, it's a very well used section of trail, and the new section is it's great, and the composite decking, it's going to last a long time before we have to do any repair. So operationally, we had some time with our in-house staff to do a resurfacing of the entire trail from Orchard Park all the way out to Center Street. And we've just completed that. We did it between other operational tasks this fall. And so we've got it a nice fresh surface on there. We've improved the walking experience for all users. Just another photo to indicate that the nice, smooth, consistent surface we've applied. Also earlier in the meeting, we were discussing the new paved sidewalk that runs from Muskoka Landing over to Rogers Cove. And so this section in the past, it wasn't a real good smooth surface. And there were some operational challenges over at the Muskoka Landing end, where there was a wooden bridge that our winter equipment couldn't cross. So this improved pedestrian pathway is finally a really good surface that gets pedestrians safely from King William Street over to Highway 60. And we know it's well used by the residents in both Muskoka Landing and Rogers Cove. So it's a great improvement for those folks too that just are getting out for exercise as well. This is the sidewalk that's recently been paved on Center Street. And the paving of it is not only good for users, but it's going to be long-term, just a better maintenance, easier maintenance for our operational crews for all seasons of the year. Late in 2019, we obtained a section of property adjacent to the launch docks at Avery Beach. And this is what it looked like at the time we purchased it. And then we've had that hangar building removed. So this is what remains. There's a concrete foundation around the perimeter, and then the decking that was inside of the building. So the future is yet to be determined exactly, but certainly we've got some potential there for, different uses, passive and active. The next few slides got some proposed work for 2021, and those are, you've got information about those in the budget information, but we'll go through a few photos. we have some money assigned to do some repair work to the Ferry Vista Trail. It's also a very well used trail. There are some sections that require repair. You can see in these photos that that there's been some heaving and such over the years due to drainage. We've done some work to improve drainage. There's another cross culvert or two that we need to put in to keep the water, the overflow of rain to flow the way it should. And then we need to do some repair after those cross culverts are installed. So certainly not asking to replace the entire section, but just the pieces that are requiring it. Spent some time in Port Sydney and in consultation with both ward councillors and Stevenson assisted, talking about what the priority there as far as capital asset replacement and enhancement of services down there. So here we have a parking area up top that a lot of people park here and want to go down to the beach, or there's a sitting area at a table. We've been asked to look into installing a pathway there that is a gentle grade as well as level and even, so that we can safely get more pedestrians from the parking lot down to the beach and seating area. So that's one of the items that we've been discussing in this area. As well, the pavilion structure there at the beach, the foundation is showing its age for sure. And so we need to do a little work there just to shore up the foundation there and get it tidied up so that it'll last well into the future. This summer, we certainly saw an increase in use of all of our passive waterfront properties. People were eager to find space to get outside and enjoy. We did speak earlier in this meeting about the Clark Crescent tennis courts, and we recognize that some public consultation is required to determine what the future use is of this property. And we hope to get on that as soon as we can find a way to effectively garner input from the public, whether it's by Zoom or somehow. The one real conflict in this area is just the shade that's cast by the large white pine trees in this. If we intend to in the future use this as a recreational surface, be it basketball, pickleball, tennis, any of those uses, we really do have to consider improving the airflow through the area, as well as just the exposure to sun to keep the surfaces dry. As it is now, the pine needles are one thing, but also the moisture that sits on the surfaces is another thing that makes it a less than perfect playing surface for any type of sport. So if we intend to reuse that as a sports type of active surface, we really have to consider doing some significant tree removal to make the conditions compatible for that. This is a picture of the sidewalk at Meadow Park. And we do have some concerns here about the uneven surfaces, the age of the facility itself. These pathways need to be resurfaced and paved for a number of reasons. We do have two sections that go into the tennis courts that are granular in surface. And we've got matting in place that actually protects the surfacing so that the granular doesn't get tracked out onto the tennis court surface. But that really should be a hard surface leading into the tennis courts, and as well as these concerns that you can see my highlighter there in the picture. There's quite a bump, and there's concern there with travel safely. One other item we have in the capital budget for next year is to do some work at the skateboard park at Macaulay Robertson. This structure is needing some repair. The retaining wall that holds up that one piece of concrete, it needs a little bit of shoring up and some TLC. The entire surface of the skateboard park, we'd like to give it a fresh, clean start. We can soda blast it, clean it up tidy, so that it's fresh again. Tagging and that type of artwork is part of what a skateboard park is, but I think it's time to clean it up and start from scratch. And there are just some other repairs around this area that are needing just to get it cleaned up and tidy. So we've got an item in there too to replace the crib structure at the South Portage launch dock. The floating piece is fine. It's just that at shore you can see where where it's changed a little bit here, and the crib is actually away from the shoreline a little bit. So we've got an item in there just to replace that so that it's good and sturdy and going to be there for the long term. Again, in consultation with the ward councillors for Stevenson Sisted, we spent some time looking at what was needed here at Longs Lake Beach. And so we plan to do some renovations down here that will improve accessibility and make the park more user-friendly for passive use. So the retaining wall, with a little regrading and retaining wall removal, we can eliminate those stairs and provide a pathway that's much more user-friendly for all types of modes of transportation, for strollers, any type of wheeled mobility, as well as we would add some fresh sand adjacent to the beach area, remove the chain post, and tidy up the whole place. And the last item I have to review is the Irene Street Playground. So this playground was installed in 2007, I believe, 2007. And I wasn't here at the time, but I would hazard a guess that the foundation wasn't perfectly installed. There's been some shifting to the whole structure over the last several years. And so it's caused some concerns. We did some research in having it removed, reassembled, and reinstalled properly. It's pretty cost prohibitive, to be honest. Starting with a fresh, brand new playground with a new life cycle would really be the more effective spend of money, in our opinion. So this structure sits down on the bottom level, and then up on the top, there's actually swings. They're a more recent install, they're fine, but we propose that this one be completely replaced in the 2021 calendar year. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone should have them.
Thanks, Colleen. I'll get you to stop sharing. Yeah, now I can see hands. Just before I go to council, just because you finished with the Irene Street Playground, would part of the plan be to obviously do something with the surface so that the next install doesn't ship the same way? Or
yes, definitely. So there are more modern methods of doing installation that will be more successful in the long term, for sure.
I think I saw Deputy Mayor Alcock first.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Colleen. I was so excited when I saw all of those slides when I was reading it last night, and I was actually blown away with all of the projects that took place in 2020. So kudos to you for that. And I do have one more comment and one question, and that is, the comment is, thank you for acting so quickly. As you know, we had that emergency situation maintenance issue on Hunters Bay, and I think I put in the issue, and within a day it had been corrected. So again, thanks for that. My question is, looking at all of this incredible trail development and maintenance and whatever, and I don't know if it's fair to ask you, Colleen, but I'm putting this on record one more time, and that is that I think there are a number of people who actually aren't aware of where some of our trails are. And it was exciting to see the new linkage on Rogers Cove. Very cool. I was very excited to see the Center Street paved. That was, I hadn't realized that was going to happen, and that was huge improvement. But we don't have any signage anywhere to say what an extensive trail system we have. And I know I've mentioned signage, but I feel like it's part of this infrastructure to let people know where the linkages are and where the trails are. So it's not really fair to ask you, Colleen, because I know we've talked about it in our economic development, but it's my plug one more time that I think that this should be identified as a capital improvement somewhere and soon, because you have done such an awesome job doing what you do. So I don't know if you can you comment on that? And if not, maybe just give me an answer to say, where do I go with that one?
Through you, Mayor Terziano. So we do have some good community partners in the Rotary Club and others, and they're interested in helping us out with some projects like that. In fact, they were at the Avery Beach Pavilion this past season, and they gave it a paint job. And so, I mean, we may need some capital dollars to support that, but they're eager to help us in any projects like that that could help the community.
Follow-up?
Yes, please. Thanks, Your Worship. And thanks for that, Colleen. I'll say, and I realize the Rotary's have been great, you know, certainly with the Avery Beach sign and others. I do think it's a municipal-wide thing, though, that showing and somewhere we need to put money in the budget to say this needs to be done, because we've invested so much in these trails. They are awesome and they're getting better. And it's just part of our whole better health objectives and active transportation, all of it. It meets so many objectives. And so it's not a huge ask, I don't think. So I'm putting it out there. And finally, I want to say I agree with the mayor about Irene Street. I think the Irene Street playground is a really high priority. So thank you for allowing me to go on.
And just further to that, when we get to our Wayfair signage capital project, which is coming soon, these places will be identified as part of that. So they will be, absolutely. Councillor Stone.
Just one more quick question about the Irene Street playground. When the old one comes out, can we give it or sell it at a nominal fee to have it used elsewhere in town?
Well, for a lot of reasons that generally doesn't happen, liability reasons, etc. It really should be disposed of.
That sounds too bad.
Colleen, there's nothing salvageable in that structure?
Well, to be honest, the shifting in the spring when the frost comes out has done some damage to the structure. Not only that, but you know, when we buy a brand new playground, the product itself is just one part of what needs to be safe. It also needs to be installed correctly. If we were to sell something and it was installed incorrectly, it could lead to future liability. And the structure is old enough that I would say it has a limited lifespan left, especially due to the condition it's in.
Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I would like to say I support what Deputy Mayor Alcock was saying. I have sort of a pet peeve I want to bring up that I brought up a number of years ago as well, and that's the Ferry Vista Trail where it hits North Grandview Drive. You may recall where it hits coming, I'm thinking north. It hits the road and it used to go across the road, and then there was a bridge up to the end of the trail. That bridge washed out. There was an agreement, I actually have a copy of it, where that was Club Link's responsibility. For some reason, they got let off the hook, and what's left there is very dangerous. And I'm surprised there hasn't been a big accident there, because people racing up and down that road to meet tea times, where the people are directed now is on the narrowest part of that road that has rocks on each side. So there's no place to bail out if somebody's coming at you. You're kind of stuck in this funnel. I think it's very unsafe. And I think I'd like to reopen that issue and get that bridge reinstalled before there's a tragedy there. It's really unbelievable that there hasn't been something so far, but I think it's there waiting to happen. I think it's incredibly unsafe. I just want to throw that out there. Thanks.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Just to give kudos out to Colleen and Director Hernan on the great job they've done. And the pictures really don't give it justice. If you get a chance, go out and look at the ball diamonds and the paths that have been done. They actually look amazing. And I think we're going to have a great baseball season this year. And it's probably I know it's the best ball diamonds in all of Muskoka, if not the surrounding area too. So job great then. Thanks.
Colleen, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Terziano. Yeah, great work, Colleen and Director Hernan. And you guys know I'm probably, and you maybe get tired of hearing of it, but I'm very happy to hear all the accessibility pieces. I know we just got some accessible parking spots at the public beach in Port Sydney, so it'll be a great, segue to be able to have people to be able to access that and be able to get down through proper accessible trails. So I'm very happy to hear that, in both the locations to be able to make it accessible for even people with strollers and things to be able to get on the trail systems and be able to utilize those. To Deputy Mayor Alcock's comments, I think at one point, did the district not, I'm probably going back a number of years, there was like a little booklet on a carabiner with all of the trail systems throughout Muskoka at one point. And I don't know if we did in the back of our leisure guides always list the trails that are accessible for Huntsville. I don't know where that option is. I know with the wayfinding signage, we're going to do that, which is great. But yeah, is there a list on the town website somewhere that does list all the trail and access points?
Okay. Colleen, thanks for that. The pictures were great. And as much as I often hear what we aren't doing right or what we need to do better, I've had lots of comments on the Center Street sidewalk and also on the Hunters Bay Trail. Actually, people are going out of their way to comment how nicely the new resurfacing is of Hunters Bay Trail. So great job. Let's see if we can get Rob back with sound.
Okay, we can try it again. Is it working?
Yes, that's great.
It's amazing what happens when you just turn it off and turn it back on again. It always works.
Okay, Rob, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I just have a quick report to present to you. My intention is to bring you a report every quarter. This one will cover the first 3 quarters of 2020. And in January or February, I will bring you a full annual report for 2020. And then going forward, I'll once a quarter, I'm intending to bring you a smaller quarterly report. You've all seen my level of expertise with Zoom, so I didn't even attempt to bring any nice pictures and things along, but hopefully in time for the annual report, I'll be able to put something a little better together. So just to spin through this quickly, the overarching theme in this report seems to be the ways that COVID has changed what we do and the results that we have seen. And it's just in about every area of what we normally do. So I'll just go through them one by one. So the first one was call statistics. Provincially, we've seen that fire response, emergency response statistics are up. That's across the province. Speculation that some of it is to do with people being home more, people cooking more at home, things like that. So we have seen a bit of an uptick in our calls. We did see a few more fires. We had 37 fires, as you can see from the little chart there. The breakdown of those, 9 of those were considered to be structure fires or significant structure fires, which is up a little bit over previous years. The rest were vehicle fires, brush fires, and smaller incidents. Our total fire loss number, which is, I don't put a whole lot of stock in the fire loss number. I prefer to use a fire save number. a dollar saved, but we did see almost a doubling from this time last year, with almost $2.5 million in fire loss reported for 2020. The one big significant increase is the public hazards calls. Now, public hazards include things like gas leaks and so on, but the biggest part of that number is for wires down. We get typically call it any time that there's a power line down, especially if it's causing arcing and sparking, things like that. It should be noted that we don't run to these calls with a full crew most of the time. These are a single officer call. So we'll send an officer to the scene, they'll assess the situation and then pretty much hand it off to hydro. So it is a big number as far as the number of calls we handle, but it's not a huge manpower issue there. And everything else overall, false alarms are up. And again, part of that is possibly because of we had a period of time there where businesses were closed, and we believe that some of that has affected the false alarm call. And then going back again to people being at home during COVID, doing more cooking and so on, we got more of those type of calls where smoke alarms activated by cooking and things like that. So not a huge significant increase, but those calls were up as well. And again, I will bring you a more of an analysis and a breakdown of calls when I do the annual report, and we can look at things in detail. But if and maybe at the end, if anybody has any questions specifically about calls, I'll be happy to answer them then. Moving on to training. Training was very significantly affected by the pandemic, just based on the fact that we were not able to get together in the group that we normally would. We did do some Zoom training and online things. And then as things began to open up a little bit, we were able to get together for in-person training, although we did change our delivery in that instead of training in a whole large group at each station, we were breaking into smaller platoons so that we could follow the guidelines and work with smaller groups and increase the social distancing and so on. We were able to deliver a good menu of training for our people over the course of the first 3 quarters. There's a little chart there that shows the breakdown of what we did. We did modify some of what we delivered, again, based on wanting to be able to do things by Zoom. So we did sort of shift around the types of training that we did. But we were able to hit the core part of what we needed to deliver to our people to make sure that they're getting the training that they need to be safe. And I should mention, and you probably know, training is from the suppression side of the fire department. Training is the most important thing that we do, making sure that everybody has the skills, that their skills are as sharp as possible, making sure that everybody's safe when we send people into to any kind of an emergency scene. So we really did work hard on making sure that we could continue our training program even though things were shut down for a time. Some of the other training highlights, we do run officer development. This is training that we do for people that we've identified as that either are currently officers or that have the potential to move up in the officers' ranks. So we do this monthly, and we were able to continue that for the most part during the year. We did 8 sessions in a typical year. One area that we really lost out on, and it really hurt because of the COVID situation, was we were not able to do a recruit training class this year. So it really is going to set us back for a full year, and that's assuming that we can get things going again for next year. A recruit training program generally takes the better part of a year by the time we do our recruitment, our selection process, and then and get into the NFPA firefighter level 1 and level 2 training. So losing this recruit class for 2020, we're going to feel those effects. Huntsville, on the Huntsville side, we're not too bad in terms of numbers, but I know over in Lake Bays, the stations there have a little bit of a shortage of manpower right now, and we really missed the opportunity to get some good new recruits in there. But we will, as soon as possible, get that going again, and definitely get a recruit class going for 2021, if at all possible. We were able to do a pump operations course. This is another important course to make sure that that our people are able to drive and operate our fire pumpers. It's a very ambitious course. It involves lots of classroom work as well as a good portion of hands-on. We were able to get that done in the later part of Q3 in October, and we were able to get all of our the people that were in that course certified to the NFPA level for pump operations. So that was an important one for us to get done. We were also able to, as you know, we did a bit of an improvement on our training ground at Port Sydney. We got the live fire burn units installed in time to do some live fire training. We were able to get the last recruit class through to get their live fire certification for NFPA firefighter level 2. We did 2 different weekends where we ran all of the stations, personnel from all of the stations through a number of live fire scenarios, and that all went very well. And we're looking forward to continuing to improve that fire training ground. It is a great resource for us to be able to get our folks through that live fire training. And then finally, another project that we did through the training division, and it was something that became very important as we did our remote training and as we changed our training schedule around because of the pandemic. We adopted a software called Target Solutions that allows us to do that, to track our training and to deliver online training more effectively. So that was another project that we were able to complete through the training division. Moving on to fire prevention, this again was very much affected by the situation with lockdowns and so on. So much of what we do in fire prevention and public education it involves direct contact between our fire prevention inspector and also the people that are involved in public education. A lot of our public education had to be postponed this year just due to those restrictions. We were able to do the majority of the required inspections, obviously with great care and doing the social distancing and protecting our people and the public. But one area that we were not able to do inspections on was the vulnerable sector, which old age homes predominantly, for obvious reasons, with the the extra danger that was around those facilities with the COVID-19. We did not do any inspections, and that was authorized by the provincial government, who basically mandates those inspections. But for this year, we were allowed to suspend them. The facility operators were able to do their own fire drills and some of the compliance work that needed to be done. But we didn't need to put people in there and run the risk of carrying the virus into those facilities. Other than that, we were able to get through the majority of the facilities that we would normally inspect. We were able to look after complaint and request inspections with some obvious impact from the lockdown and so on. But we were able to do our best there to get the work done that needed to be done. In terms of public education, this again was impacted by the fact that we weren't doing gatherings. We were minimizing our interaction with the public, unfortunately. We were able to do a couple things early in the year before things locked down, but we missed out on some of the bigger things that we would normally do over the summer. Fire Prevention Week, where we would normally be in the schools and we would normally have open houses and be dealing with the public, we were not able to do. Our folks did what they could do virtually through social media and through the local media. we were able to put a couple of programs together for Fire Prevention Week and do the best we could to get the word out there on fire safety. We did a sprinkler demonstration, a side-by-side burn, which was pretty effective. And again, we were able to get it out through social media and through the local media and do the best we could. But we're looking forward to getting back to somewhat normal, hopefully next year, and get back out with our public education messages. The emergency management program, a lot of it we were able to get done early in the year. And again, this was before I got here, so I'm relying on reports on that. But and we will again in 2021 try to get as much of the compliance work out of the way early in the year as much as we can, depending on what the restrictions are. The other notable, we were able to achieve compliance, and again, the province loosened the requirements for things like exercises for emergency management. As we were all sort of dealing with a significant emergency for most of the year, it was determined that an exercise was not necessary. So we have submitted the paperwork that we need to get our annual compliance from the province. That's looked after. A couple of other things is the town adopting the 511 and the 211 systems that we can use in case of emergency, and also are being used regularly by Public Works in the case of 511. So that was done again early on in the year. Moving on to the mechanical division and the premises. We did have some smaller capital projects, things that needed to be replaced and upgraded, including water pumps. We replaced some of our ice and water rescue equipment as is required to continue those programs. We regularly have to replace some of the firefighter turnout gear. That equipment has a 10-year lifespan, and so there is a regular replacement regimen there to keep everybody up to date and make sure that we're using the best possible equipment and that everything is meeting the requirements. We had to, we installed a new heavy duty equipment wash machine that we use for the bunker gear. You can't just run that stuff through a normal household washing machine. So we have a good heavy duty unit that was installed earlier in the year. Looking at Station 1, in addition to the equipment purchases, there were some significant repair operations that needed to be done on the building, including some brickwork. The majority of that was done before the weather started to get bad, although there is one small section that we're going to have to carry forward into next year. We also were able to replace all the lighting in the truck bays with the higher efficiency LED lighting that was completed in the fall. And looking at Station 3, again, there was some small equipment replacement, fire hose, rope rescue equipment, and some turnout gear as well. That was done through the same program at Port Sydney at Station 3. And that closed out our capital projects and repairs and so on. So that brings me to the end of the quarterly, three quarterly report. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. We'll go to Council. Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I just wanted to publicly thank the Chief and Paul Kalea for allowing Councillor Schumacher, Fitzgerald, and myself to participate in the live fire training, to be able to go in and experience what the firefighters go through. I was dumbfounded. It was amazing and terrifying and exciting and highly technical, done with military precision, and I was utterly impressed. So thank you.
I want to say thank you, Councillor Stone, and the other councillors that were able to come down. And I think you had a great suggestion for maybe a revenue project is doing some, letting people come and pay to have that experience, given that you had such a good time at it. Maybe there's a market for that.
There is. Better than an amusement ride for sure.
Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Worship, and thanks for the report. I just wanted to ask, sort of drill down a bit on these false alarms. I mean, they were up huge, like almost a full third of what was done last time. And in relation to that, you mentioned false alarm charges. What is the charge, and how does it, do people get like 3 strikes if they've got a malfunctioning system that keeps calling you out? How do you charge for false alarms, and what's the number? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is a mechanism in place for charging for these false alarms, and according to the wording in the bylaw, we may charge for any and all false alarm. Generally, what we do is there is one free one, if you will, and it depends on the situation. But in most cases, if we're called to something that turns out to be a false alarm, the people will rectify that situation, and we don't get a lot of repeat calls. When we do go to repeat calls, and especially if it required something that needed to be repaired and it wasn't repaired, then we start charging based on the circumstances. But generally, there is one that's kind of a freebie that there would be no charge for.
Can I ask how much the charge is?
In a lot of cases, we're just charging for the response. So we can charge for, we charge $485, I believe, for a crew to go there. So we can charge that. Or if we level a fine, it is a lesser amount. But it depends on the circumstance whether we actually issue a fine or whether we just issue a letter and charge for the full amount of the response. So
can I follow?
Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. And is a false alarm somebody actually picking up the phone and calling you, and you get there and there really isn't anything to do, or is it all mechanical stuff, like the alarm in my office going off and calling you directly?
Most of the time, false alarms are going to be automated. So it's through an alarm system. It's not very often that someone picks up a phone and calls in an alarm that turns it out to be false. And if that were the case, if someone actually had reason to believe that there was an emergency and they actually picked up the phone and made a call, we probably would treat that a little more leniently, because there was some expectation that there was a problem.
Thank you.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. And yeah, sorry, I echo Councillor Stone's enthusiasm at our training day there. Also see, my father was a volunteer firefighter for 17 years, so I got to see sort of how things went, although I'm sure his training back in his day of doing it was a little different than what you guys are regulated to go through. I do want to say I appreciate the report. I do miss of course, this year, the Port Sydney Firefighters Pancake Breakfast was kind of a missed opportunity for some fundraising there. I am happy to hear that I believe Project Porchlight is a go for next week. So that will be good to see the community involvement in that as well. And yeah, kudos to your Movember campaign. I see that that's raised some awareness and good job there in that. And with the false alarms, I'm sure Director Hernan knows I've had some experience with that in our congregated care, as well as the not being able to go in and do the inspections for our facilities. So we've done some training ourselves on how to do our own inspections. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks, Rob, for that report. We will see you at the next quarter.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Council, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Alcock. It is recommended that committee approve the transfer of the unspent Economic Development Strategy Reserve Funds of $20,000 allocated to the Economic Development Strategy to be completed in 2021, and further that the reserve be terminated upon completion of the project. I think it's just a transfer of funds, but I see Mr. Oval's with us. If there's anything you want to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, it was in our business plan this year with the onset of the pandemic. Like a lot of things, we had to alter our plans. We were just pulled in multiple directions, both locally and regionally, on a lot of different projects to help with the recovery efforts. And if approved today and then subsequently ratified by council, our plan would be to begin this process early in January. Thanks.
Any questions, Council? Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Worship. I'm just curious, what exactly is this money spent on? It's like it's a strategy that's like a strategic plan. Why is it costing all this money?
Well, that's what we have allocated for it, Councillor Withey. We'll go out for RFP and see what we get back. Given the workload that we have next year and the different projects that we're working on, and in conversations with our economic development working group, we thought that the best approach would be to issue an RFP and work through them to aid in the development of that, work through the public consultation as well with support from staff here, and then ultimately the development and the finalization of the document.
But what's the money spent on? I mean, what is the actual cash going to, a consultant or?
Yes, that's correct.
Paper clips or what is it? Consultant?
Through Your Worship, yeah, the funds would be going to a consultant.
Thank you.
No other questions? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. New business, development services. Andrew, bylaw enforcement, yearly statistics.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the report before you is for information only. One of the things I would like to highlight is in Appendix I, which is our schedule of bylaws to be reviewed. There are a few bylaws. I just wanted to explain the sign bylaw, the building code bylaw, and the 911 municipal addressing bylaw. Those three bylaws sit with another department where administration is done by them and the enforcement is done by the bylaw department. So those, from the staff I've spoken to, they are being looked at. I don't know if they're going to be ready in time for next month before the end of the year. And then the last one is the taxi bylaw. It will not be done. There are currently charges before the courts, and we cannot change the bylaw in the middle of any sort of court proceedings, or legal proceedings might be a better term. So I just wanted to explain that off the bat. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight was the parking tickets. So we have now an online portal for people to pay their parking tickets that they've been issued. We also have a new parking ticket database, and they do work together. It is the same company. And as you can see from, sorry, one of the appendixes where it shows the enforcement, the parking tickets kind of, I guess you could say, differ from year to year. Appendix 3, kind of up and down, then in the middle and up again. And that just reflects the different ways we've been doing parking enforcement over the last few years. If you would recall, the yellow warning cards, the red warning cards, and then a ticket. None of that was done this year. And we did have quite a few parking tickets that were issued. That's all broken down a little for more detail on the next page. I don't think that's in there.
Okay. Question. Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Andrew. It's really a comment. I just want to say kudos. There are a lot of completed projects. There are a lot of completed bylaw reviews, and that's I was a bit surprised, a lot of work. And so thank you for that. And plus, I want to pass on a compliment I heard the other day. Someone I know is looking at opening a food truck, and I told them to get in touch with you. You were the point guy, and they said they had a fantastic meeting with you. So kudos to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Andrew. Andrew, I recently had a complaint with regards to some of the, I guess, customers of the short-term rental accommodations type of thing, where in this particular case, it was someone on a Sunday morning, I guess, looked out their window and there were several people on their front lawn, and they'd come from a short-term rental accommodation type of thing. And I'm just wondering if maybe through you or through Ingrid or whatever, would it be possible or advisable if maybe some, maybe each of these short-term rental accommodations would maybe have a, something beside the door or as part of their agreement where, codes of conduct, if you like, or what is permissible, or, basically things like, how to be a good neighbor type of thing. And one of them would be not to go walking through the bush and end up in somebody's front lawn type of thing. I'm just wondering if something like that would be doable, and who would look after it, who would do it if we decided that was appropriate action.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Yes, so there is a binder that the owner of the short-term rental supplies, if you will, and it leaves on the kitchen counter, and it has various pieces of information in there. I believe there's even a couple of bylaws and a code of conduct for the renter, if you will, to follow. Now, Ingrid Armstrong would be the best one to ask that question, as all the administration and paperwork is done through her. I'm not 100% as to what exactly is in that binder.
Okay, Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Through you. Just a quick question about the private parking lots. Can you give me an example of private parking lots and the money if those fines come back to us? Because from 2018, they've had a huge drop. So I'm just curious what they are.
So the private parking lots falls under our fire route and accessible parking, and that would be places like Canadian Tire, Walmart, Shoppers Drug Mart, independent grocers, the hospital. Just to give a few examples, we do have, if you would, signed permission from each of the property owners to enter onto the property. Each of the properties is signed that the town of Huntsville does do the enforcement for fire routes and accessible parking on that, or at that specific location. Those signs have been up for years, and we have been doing enforcement at these private parking lots for many years. Now, it's not for, maybe someone taking up 4 parking spots or 2 parking spots. It's strictly just fire route and designated accessible parking that we enforce.
Andrew, on that private parking lot in 2018, there were 39 excess of posted time limit. What private parking lots actually have a time limit that we would enforce?
Oh, I apologize, Your Worship. That would just refer to the parking lots that the Royal Bank parking lot and the Rivermill parking lot. Those are the only 2 we do the excessive posted time limit. So I do apologize. That is a little bit confusing.
And one other, in the 2020 prohibited parking, or I guess in any year, what's prohibited parking? I get the parked in excess of time limit, but like 200 tickets for prohibited. What falls under prohibited?
So prohibited parking is basically your no parking. The circle with the P and the line through it, that's no parking.
Okay.
Great. Just technically, I guess you could say the legal or bylaw term is prohibited.
Thanks for that. That's a good report.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, community services update. Simone.
Good afternoon. I was just going to say good morning. I'll try to be brief. I do have an update for you in terms of community services. as you know, we have been moved to the orange level of the COVID framework. We are currently in compliance. We have met with the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit and continue to do so. We do this a couple times a week. I think at this point we're almost 3 times a week, and even a few phone calls. They have visited us recently. We've been in contact with them, I think, in meeting with them today, just to get further clarification. Every facility, as we've touched on before, is a wee bit different. So we've taken those restrictions and the guidelines, and then we have our health department come in and walk through the facility with us just to make sure that there's any tweaks. We've sent them back with some homework to get some answers for us, and that's what they're meeting with us today. We are expecting some further restrictions and further limited capacity to our facility. I wanted to give you an update on the Don Lock ice surface. We do have a full roster of hourly renters. They are in compliance. We do have SMDHU's approval to move through that process and be able to have people through the facility. Our customers are happy to be safely using the facilities, and it certainly does help with their well-being. We've been able to leverage our daytime opening time slots that aren't as full with our adult skates and our parent and taught skates. Those numbers are always low. We're able to meet the minimums and the restricted numbers, and so we were able to move forward with those. But our evening ice and our weekends, we have a waiting list for most of the ice time slot. As for usage of the pool, our patrons have returned and are thrilled to do so. We have tried to leverage each and every hour at the pool. Our system is working. Again, it has been approved and revisited with the health unit. Again, they were coming through today to do a walkthrough. Our daily programs are well received and are always at capacity with waiting lists. That is our daily activities with our lessons and our fitness programs, as well as our clinics. Those have been very well subscribed to. We always meet the maximum of our limited numbers on those. But in terms of our children's lessons in the evenings, those weren't as subscribed to as much. And so we've been able to pull back on staff in that regard so that we have minimized our salary wages in that regard. As the capacity numbers further get restricted, the numbers of people using the spaces per hour will impact us. So we'll report back to council in how that's going to affect us going forward. But just to be aware that we are cutting staff hours according to meet the minimum requirements of the pool and all of our facilities, but also to meet the regulations, but also meet the COVID regulations and be fiscally responsible at the same time. Our walking track is something that we've never received revenue for. And this has been very well received by our community. We are busy all hours of the day that we have time slots open. This takes a lot more labor from our customer service team. This is not something we ever did before, right? The doors were open, people just came and went. We're having to track people. So this is somewhere that we are spending salary and hours to administer and make happen and do it in a safe way. But again, we've gone through the health department to get their approval. Pickleball, as Jim and Lorna had talked about, are in on the Jack Beyond ice surface or floor surface, sorry. And our pickleballers are thrilled to be here. Again, the health unit did give us their approval. We'll see where those numbers put us in the future and see if we can add to or need to subtract for that number. There is no additional staff needed to make that happen. That is our full-time staff that is here and our customer service staff that's already working at the front desk. I did want to get some direction from council in regards to being in the framework of Orange for going forward and the closing of the Canada Summit Center for the holidays. I wanted to get some feedback there. based on the fact that we're not offering our usual sponsored holiday public swimming and skating programs or running day camp. That usually makes us a very busy place for the holiday season. Our minor hockey and our figure skating do usually pull back at about this time of year. So we do see some rentals coming in. We do have people booking the ice surfaces for an hour at a time just to use with their families. So that is possible, and we certainly will have people interested in using the walking track. However, the health unit is promoting that we not promote social gatherings, stay at home for a 2-week period, and that we, and the cost in opening the building is not a cost recovery at that time. So I am proposing that the Canada Summit Centre be closed from the 24th of December to January 2nd. This will result in some savings of part-time salary and wages, as well as a bit of utilities. But again, we can be here for our customers and our community if you'd like us to be on a part-time basis through that time period. I just thought I'd like council's direction and which way you want us to go.
That it?
That's it.
All right, questions and comments, council. Tim, Councilor Withey.
Thanks, Karen. I mean, Mayor Terziano. Thanks, Simone. I agree with your plan for over the Christmas period there. I do feel that we're going to be there anyway with the way things are going, unfortunately. So, of course, between now and then, that'll as you're quite competently monitoring that. But I think that's a good strategy. I know you were speaking of the walking track. I certainly would be, and you didn't say this, but you were talking about the costs and stuff. I believe that track, we should never charge for people to use that track in this town. So you didn't go there, but you were talking about the staff that you were having to put there. So I just didn't want to get further down that road. But thanks, Simone. That was a good report.
Thank you.
Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to echo the comments by Councillor Withey and add that you and the team, Greg, et cetera, have been doing a fantastic job through this. We've been working quite closely over the last several months, and I can't express to the rest of the council how impressed I am with the work they've been doing. So thumbs up.
Thank you.
Councillor Stone.
I would agree with both the previous comments that closing over the Christmas holidays makes good sense, and I think it's good mental health for our employees.
Mm. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I'll lower my other hand here. Thank you, Your Worship, and Simone, thanks for the report. Yeah, and I would agree with the 3 previous comments as well. You're doing a great job, you and Greg and your staff. So thank you very much for that. These are very trying times for you and your staff, and you're doing a stellar job for us. So appreciate that very much, Simone. Question I have for you though, with regards to the Jack and pickleball, how many courts can you put on? You know, we're talking about you putting 4 on a tennis court. How many pickleball courts do we put in the Jack?
We have 4 courts through you, Mayor Terziano. We have 4 courts on the Jack floor. So you can put 16 people. Right now, our limits are not allowing us to do that, but they are taking turns. And as Jim and Lorna and Kim pointed out, we have about 135 interested folks. So we are doing the bubble thing. They have to be in a bubble. So for the next 5 weeks, we have a group that are in a bubble for beginner, intermediate, and expert, and do pay a rate to come in. It's going to get a little chilly in the Jack. We don't have a lot of heat for them. It's usually an ice pad in January and February, so we'll see where that goes.
Interesting you mentioned that, because I was going to ask, what are they doing for heat in there? Because you're right, the heating units for the seating area, I guess, is one thing, but there's not really anything for the floor itself. So we'll have some bundled up pickleball players maybe come January and February.
And if I could comment, Mayor Terziano, there were pickleball players out last week wearing mittens and hats playing outdoors.
Council, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Wiebe. It is recommended that staff be directed to close the Canada Summit Centre for the time frame of December 24th, 2020 to January 2nd, 2021. Questions? Councillor Armour.
Just that any full-time staff, I guess the option for them would be able to use new time, vacation time, or stat time for cover off pay for that period of time that we're shutting down.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Through you, Mayor Terziano, yes, we certainly have staff that have vacation time to use. They can certainly do that. We've already covered that before we even proposed it this morning. So that will be full-time staff take that and lieu and vacation.
All in favor? Carries. Simone, just one question before we move on to pickleball. With Dr. Gardner's suggestion that we consider not having, not allowing people from red zones renting our facilities, and I know that that's not an order at this time, but you mentioned at the start of your spiel there that you were expecting changes. Is that one of the changes you're expecting for that to become an order? And if so, should council be talking about that at this stage?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, I am going to refer this to Denise. I have not seen the letter myself, so I'm hoping that Denise can respond to that, but we're ready to react in any way that we need to.
This is part of her report.
Through you, Your Worship. So Dr. Gardner has not at any time indicated that he is going to initiate an order that would restrict individuals from traveling from higher risk zones to lower risk zones. As committee's aware, the province of Ontario states that we must adhere to the provisions that are put in place by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. And then the Chief Medical Officer of Health obviously provides support to our medical officers of health within our health unit regions. I do have a call with Dr. Gardner tomorrow. The area CAOs will be speaking with him. We do have a weekly update with him. I'm sure that this letter will be a topic of discussion because I'm sure as council can agree, it puts municipalities in a little bit of a difficult position when, although we may have the authority, as noted in the correspondence under the Municipal Act, under a natural person power, it still really puts a lot of strain on municipalities to make the decision to restrict people to use public facilities. Some of those facilities which are actually paid for by permanent and seasonal residents. So it's a bit of a slippery slope. So I can tell you at this point in time, there has been no indication from Dr. Gardner that the health unit will be imposing an order. But I certainly will, I'm sure this will be a discussion tomorrow at our weekly meeting.
Okay. Pickleball delegation. I have a resolution, if I can get a mover and seconder for pickleball. Deputy Mayor Alcock. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Wiebe. It is recommended that the staff be directed to investigate the potential of converting one tennis court at Meadow Park to permanent pickleball courts and report back to committee. Questions, comments? Councillor Armour.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Could we have a online survey for that that comes back with the report so we can get some input from the community and tennis players, etc., on the possible impacts to them, if there's one?
I think we probably could do one, but what information are you looking for? Are we looking for how many tennis players would object?
Well, sort of. I'd like to know if there's more interest within the community and if we're going to take Meadow Park and turn it into pickleball one side, tennis on the other side. I'd just like to know what the public generally feels about it.
Simone?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, I might suggest exactly doing that. We do have a bang the table engagement process that's from our website. We do have a list of tennis and pickleball players, as well as some abilities to reach out to our other customers in the Huntsville area through that route. So we have a number of ways to engage. I think engagement is really the right way to go. It is a bigger conversation, but I think we might also include this in our master plan, which quite honestly, we've been chatting about by email through this process of the meeting today, to make sure that we are covering that in our master plan that is coming forward in early 21. So the RFP is about to go out next Monday, and we'll be able to include that. I think it is an important part of the master plan.
Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I'm in favor of going forward with it. Community engagement as well, but I'm in favor of the expanding into the pickleball realm. I do think though that we'll need to work, our staff's gonna have to work on how we ensure that there isn't a monopoly on courts and there is a little bit of capital replacement ongoing, whether it's through a monthly park rental or court rental or what have you. But on the whole, I'm
Good. Deputy Mayor Alcock?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Simone, for your comments. I think Councillor Weeb sort of said what I was planning to, and that is, yes, it obviously should be part of our master plan process, which will include a lot of public engagement. I have no problem with going through having some sort of public engagement on this particular motion, because it gives the pickleball players an opportunity to speak as well, right? And I have no doubt that there is so much interest in our community. Pickleball is growing by leaps and bounds, a lot faster than tennis right now. And so I'm supportive of what Simone said, what Councillor Weeb said, and in fact, with your suggestion, Councillor Armour. So I guess that's what I want to say.
Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm sure Deputy Mayor Alcock will agree with what I'm about to say too, as well. I was just further to my remarks before, I'd like to look a little bit more forward thinking about investigating some areas of town-owned property that we can look to supporting this expanding activity. So as I mentioned before, like with soccer pitches, we need to plan ahead if this is going to be the next greatest thing and everybody wants to do it. Thanks.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I would agree with Councillor Withey on this, and I'm just through you to Simone, though, would this then be considered to be part of the master plan then, Simone, like looking at potential or future potential pickleball sites and so on and so forth?
Through you, Mayor Terziano. Yeah, I think the master plan is, the goal is to identify future trends and where things are going. And do we have the capacity or the infrastructure to supply that now, or going forward, what's the plan? So it does help us lay out that plan, and then we can react through budget process and the other departments and all good things. So I think the master plan definitely is a great place to start, and the timing is awesome.
Councillor Schumacher.
Through you, Mayor Terziano, to Simone. Yeah, this is great. I think we need to go forward with sort of getting that costing, keeping in mind that we are looking at Spring Creek as well up in the Port Sydney area, and one of those courts is multi-use. And does that look like half a court with 2 pickleball courts and half a court as a basketball? Like, what are those options that we're sort of keeping our minds open with? Because I know we're looking to public engagement for that as well. So looking at that public engagement for this particular one, I'm in concurrence with Councillor Weeb. Let's get, sort of the feedback from everybody, as most of the councillors have been saying, knowing we're going to be doing that as well in the Port Sydney area. and what are those costs going to look like. Let's get proactive on this because it's coming forward.
Okay, Simona, I agree with Councillor Schumacher. I would like to see the Port Sydney courts be part of this whole review to see whether they can be used, and that may well be taking some trees down there before they can be used for anything. So I think that we should get on that right away. And the other piece is for the report, pickleball is definitely the fastest growing sport, but when you just take something away from another group, it often causes a problem. And I had calls this summer about the amount of time that we book the courts for now to people, which the suggestion is they're not really a public court anymore. The public can't go out and use them because they're booked most of the time. So I'd like to see that be part of the report too, when we actually book them and when they're just open to the public to play on without being part of an organization. So let's get a full report so that we can make a really good decision on this one. Okay, all in favor of that, council? Okay, that's carried. Just quickly, I want to remind council, and if there's anybody still watching, the Family Place is having their annual Christmas luncheon, which we generally go to in support of Salvation Army. It is Wednesday, December 2nd. It is 11 to 1, and you can get a takeout meal. They will take some reservations for a little bit of indoor seating, but the takeout meal is a great option. There's 3 choices, $25 a person, and everything goes to the Salvation Army. That's something that happens every year, and it's important that it happened this year. Of course, was mentioned earlier, the Porch Light Food Drive, our own fire department, same day, Wednesday, December 2nd. Have your stuff out on the porch or at the end of your driveway at 6 p.m. and that'll be picked up for the food banks. And then finally, the Rotary Club of Huntsville will be still holding their annual Christmas auction, and that is Sunday, December 6th. So lots going on that first week of December. Register online for Rotary and get some local Christmas shopping done. And we are going to adjourn, but after we do that, we aren't going anywhere because we have a special council meeting to finish the one that we got powered out of on Monday night. So council, it's 1:45. If we can come back, say at 1:05, give you time to have a half a sandwich and log back into the council Zoom link at 1:05. Okay, Councillor Thompson?
A question through you to Crystal, I guess. Are we staying on the same Zoom link, just coming back in?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, no. This one will be ended and you will have been sent another link through your email. So it'll be a different link into the special council meeting.
So we can leave then?
Yeah, you have to leave, yes.
Okay.
So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Councillor Armour, is recommended that we do now adjourn at 12:45 p.m. All in favor?